Introducing Namiki Haruka, a character poised to capture the attention of all who cross her path. He dedicated years to battling those he deemed weak. The protagonist now faced a host of formidable monsters. He finally ascended to the pinnacle of the dungeon. The issue at hand was, he unexpectedly encounters the most formidable adversary he could imagine. Yukimura Shinji stood as a figure of intrigue and complexity. He stood among the elite, recognized as one of the rank S hunters who steadfastly refused to comply. He found himself sharing the same floor with a hunter whose strength was notably lacking. He summoned his strength, determined to resist the overwhelming forces arrayed against him, but is ultimately shattered by the remarkable power of gravity wielded by Shinji. Even upon reaching the formidable level 100, his stats remained significantly lower than those of his peers. He was more skilled than the other hunters. He crumples under pressure, as fragile as paper. He was vanquished and cast into the depths of the abyss. He was destined to perish within the depths of the dungeon. Time flows relentlessly, years slipping by in a seamless tapestry of change. Shinji found himself immersed in yet another dungeon, the atmosphere thick with the promise of adventure and peril. The impending threat of annihilation loomed large, casting a shadow over the situation. Under the relentless demands of an unyielding boss, in an instant, all the monsters were cleaved apart. Separated by him, the protagonist Namiki stood at the center of the unfolding drama. He had grown significantly more powerful. Radiating an air of confidence, he approached the situation with unwavering assurance. And emanating an aura of dominance, Shinji gazes intently at him. He stood in disbelief, astonished that he had managed to survive. He boldly claims that he will annihilate him once more. The protagonist attempts to harness the same gravitational powers once again, but in opposition to the protagonist, the ability proved to be utterly ineffective. Because the protagonist, he has achieved an extraordinary level of 6,000, boasting astonishing statistics that set him apart from others. The bully, consumed by desperation, sought control through intimidation. He seizes a woman, taking her hostage as a means of escape. In an instant, Namiki deftly plunged the blade into his abdomen, delivering a precise and devastating cut. Effortlessly, the rank S genius collapsed to his knees. Tears streamed down his face, a silent testament to his sorrow, and pleading for forgiveness. Before the watchful gaze of the crowd, the protagonist had attained a remarkable level of power that humanity had never encountered before. Now, everyone would be compelled to submit. He knelt before the newly emerged deity of the dungeon. To grasp the origins of his impressive strength, he suggested returning to examine the situation more closely. The moment he tumbled from the depths of the dungeon, following the devastating collapse, he awoke unscathed, not a blemish marring his skin. As he accessed his status, the information unfolded before him. He suddenly comprehends that everything around him has been duplicated. In addition, he acquires several new abilities that enhance his prowess. His level surged to 101, shattering the limiter in a dramatic display of newfound power. The protagonist rises to his feet, an expression of confusion etched across his face, but he felt weightless, as if floated on a gentle breeze. The sword felt like a seamless extension of his very being. Just when he thought the coast was clear, an Orthrus unexpectedly emerged from the shadows. A fearsome two-headed dog unleashed fiery bursts from its mouths. The dog lunged at him with fierce aggression. However, his newly acquired resistance ability, he activates the barrier, enveloping himself in a protective shield. The flames engulfed him, threatening to consume everything in their path. The appraisal ability sprang to life. He begins to analyze the monster's patterns with keen observation. Within a mere 20 seconds, he astutely anticipates the impending assault. Within the span of 36 seconds, he keenly identifies. He opened it, abruptly cutting off the sound. The protagonist gazed intently at the head of one of the dogs. The other individual plots to exact revenge. He forcefully thrust the sword into the creature's gaping maw. The monstrous creature succumbed to its injuries and fell to the ground. In an instant, he acquired a new skill, yet without warning, the system began to malfunction. Namiki found himself pondering the nature of that mysterious power. The skill, known as insight, granted him the ability to perceive the true essence of any target he scrutinized. The protagonist wrestled with the implications of that statement, seeking to decipher its true meaning. It resonated as a fundamental skill typically learned by novice explorers. He pondered the perplexing question of why he had never acquired it before, despite its apparent commonality. Despite his reservations, he resolved to experiment and discover how it functioned. As he activated insight, he came to the realization that, without Orthro's impressive level, he might have pushed beyond his limits. Shinji had claimed that he would have been the sole casualty. He likely confided in him, revealing all the concerns and events that transpired during that period. If that were indeed the case, Namiki knew he had to act swiftly. Despite the lingering, inexplicable pain that troubled him, he remained unaware of its origin. Soon, The scan he had initiated revealed alarming results, making it painfully clear that the situation was deteriorating. Discovering that the orthros he had battled was merely a juvenile instilled a deep sense of terror within him. This indicated that he must have plummeted to the 5th floor. If he continued sprinting downstream, he could potentially discover a secure location, yet he remained undeterred by the lurking dangers, willing to confront any monsters that might cross his path. As he turned around, an overwhelming sense of killing intent washed over him from behind. He pondered whether the sound was emanating from the entrance. The protagonist suddenly understood the gravity of his situation, recognizing that if he continued at this pace, the monster would inevitably close in on him. Suddenly, he found himself ensnared in a trap, disbelief washing over him as he grappled with the staggering turn of events. Employing his calculation skills, he meticulously assessed the circumstances surrounding him, and the system accurately calculated the trajectory of each arrow aimed at him. Confronted with those figures before his eyes, the protagonist realized he needed to act swiftly, but the system issued an urgent warning, indicating that a formidable high-level monster was rapidly approaching. The protagonist commenced a thorough examination of the information alongside the divine oracle. The protagonist struggled to comprehend the sudden flurry of alerts flooding his interface. With the enemy, a fire attribute beast, situated just 120 meters away, the system had swiftly analyzed its level and indicated that he would require a formidable 1,500 points to engage effectively. He required an additional 10,000 experience points to level up, and the calculations indicated that he still had a significant way to go. As 3 minutes elapsed, appraisal points began to materialize before him. The protagonist found himself overwhelmed by the torrent of information flooding his mind. At that moment, he caught the low rumble of a growl and glimpsed another creature lurking nearby. A furious monster erupted from the shadows behind him. The enemy unleashed a devastating barrage of flames. He compelled Namiki to leap into the water. He successfully regained his composure, accumulating additional points in the process. The revelation left him astonished. It became evident that the situation was genuine, and as he focused his gaze intently, he observed that it was indeed an adult orthros, confirming his earlier suspicions. The young one possessed an unusual power that intrigued those around him. The protagonist narrowly evaded being engulfed for the second time. With each successful evasion of the incoming attacks, he demonstrated remarkable agility. The more points he accumulated, however, he understood that his resilience had its limits. Even amidst such dire circumstances, he came to the realization that he had received another points appraisal. The protagonist remained unaware of the true significance behind those points, yet he realized that, given his current stats, defeating the monster was beyond his capabilities. The protagonist began to contemplate an escape plan, seeking a way out of his predicament because, at the current pace, he risked succumbing to exhaustion. The system indicated that 3 minutes had already elapsed. The appraisal points surged, doubling in quantity, accompanied by an enhanced divine sense. He discovered that new skills had been added, revealing a vast array of possibilities. Overwhelmed by a flurry of notifications that blurred his vision, he ultimately achieved an impressive rank A. Thanks to his extensive combat experience, he was awarded 1,500 points and ascended a remarkable 50 levels in one formidable leap. Namiki found himself bewildered by the sudden surge in his points, struggling to comprehend how such a significant increase had occurred. He had yet to conquer the orthros. It seemed to him that the system was malfunctioning. Nevertheless, he recognized that dwelling on it would be a waste of precious time. He had pressing matters to attend to. In the midst of his struggle for survival, an unexpected laugh echoed through the air. The protagonist realized that his actions had unleashed the wrath of the creature's mother, whose fury was relentless as she attacked him without pause. Namiki found himself pondering the origin of the voice resonating within his mind. A woman's voice penetrated his thoughts, echoing through his consciousness, accusing him of being entirely to blame with no possible way to evade the consequences. He pivoted and inquired about her identity. However, the girl responded, her voice laced with drowsiness, suggesting that he should find a solution on his own for the time being. Namiki found himself puzzled by the identity of the mysterious woman. She had skillfully woven herself into the fabric of his thoughts. Despite lacking any comprehension, he resolved to concentrate on the events unfolding in his surroundings. The protagonist unleashed his divine speed, propelling himself forward with astonishing swiftness. He began to adopt a more strategic approach. A sudden chill coursed coursed through him as he grasped that events were unfolding beyond his control. As he regained consciousness, as more points accumulated, the relentless flames hurled towards him remained a significant threat. Despite his enhanced physique, it seemed increasingly doubtful that he could endure much longer. At the stage he had reached, it would take significantly longer. He would be incinerated to ashes if the flames struck him directly. He resolved to harness the power of water magic and, with unwavering resolve, he unleashed a formidable torrent toward the enemy. The attack struck the monster with precision, sending shockwaves through its massive frame. The system incremented his score, granting him additional points. Namaki pondered the surprising strength that intermediate magic seemed to possess, questioning when it had become so formidable. The impact exceeded his expectations, and from the depths of the magic circle emerged a creature resembling a majestic water dragon. He found himself bewildered, struggling to grasp the reality of how that could even be possible. Determined to endure, he resolved to wield his formidable strength for survival. Namaki relentlessly unleashed a barrage of magical attacks until, at last, the jet sliced through the monstrous form with precision. The blow landed with devastating force, delivering a critical hit. The points steadily increased. The creature's form collapsed heavily to the earth. Despite everything, the monster continued to draw breath, exhibiting an alarming level of energy and vigor. Without hesitation, Namaki lunged forward, delivering a decisive strike with his sword. The enemy was ultimately vanquished at last. The protagonist diligently completed each analysis. He accumulated additional points, ultimately achieving rank A, as his combat experience was expertly enhanced. The revelation of a staggering total of 9 million points propelled Namaki upward by an impressive 300 levels, granting access to advanced features. He now recognized that the appraisal skill, once deemed trivial, meticulously dissected every aspect of his 4 attributes to their fullest potential. As time flowed onward, the divine appraisal skill evolved, effortlessly calculating the experience required for leveling up. The skill revealed the most effective strategies for accumulating points. He distributed rewards with meticulous accuracy, calibrating experience points according to the disparity in levels. The choices made during the conflict shaped the unfolding events. Consequently, he acquired a god-rank skill that had the extraordinary ability to generate vast amounts of experience. The absurd accumulation of experience granted him approximately 100 essential points, a feat that aptly explained his ascent to level 100, even without the benefit of divine appraisal. He had once found the process incomprehensible, but now he was ready to transcend his own limitations. Namaki sensed a burgeoning potential within himself, one that hinted at the possibility of surpassing his former strength. At that moment, he realized he finally had a genuine opportunity to best Shinji with his own strength. Rising to his feet, the protagonist felt a surge of determination, resolute in his belief that he must continue battling to achieve even greater levels of strength. He understood that it would never suffice, for survival in that realm demanded an even greater strength. The protagonist realized that defeating Shinji remained a distant challenge ahead of him. Yet Namaki was resolute in his quest for strength. As thoughts of Himawari flooded his mind, he tightened his grip. He clutched his lucky charm tightly, resolved to master the skill he had long desired. He resolved to utilize his appraisal skills more effectively outside the dungeon. The protagonist remained determined to confront Shinji. From a distance, the enigmatic girl observed with a satisfied smile as her small dog succumbed to defeat. She acknowledged that he possessed the courage to wield his own power for victory. It appeared that he had finally achieved complete awakening, and in that moment, Himawari sat comfortably at home, her attention captivated by the flickering images and urgent tones of the news broadcast. The broadcast reverberated with urgency as it revealed that the Explorers Association was poised to deliver a critical announcement regarding the dungeon. That morning, the announcement reverberated through the ranks, revealing that Explorer Namaki, a D-rank adventurer, had met his demise on the first floor. Himawari released her grip on the mug, causing it to clatter against the floor. She struggled to comprehend the shocking revelation that had just reached her ears. According to the information released, Shinji found himself at the center of attention. Yukimura asserted that Namaki's body had sustained extensive injuries. Only his bag containing personal belongings had been retrieved. Himawari reflected on the possibility that had she intervened to prevent Namaki from becoming an explorer, their fates might have taken a different turn. A troubling doubt began to creep in. Was it possible he was truly gone? As she dabbed at her tears, the sound of a knock reverberated through the quiet room. As she approached, Himawari noticed Shinji, who had been absent for some time, With a curious gaze, she inquired about his intentions. Shinji explained that he happened to be passing by and seized the opportunity presented before him. He presented Namiki's bag, expressing his desire to return it. Himawari immediately recognized the bag belonged to him. Acting on instinct, she swung open the door to retrieve it. A faint smile curved Shinji's lips. As soon as Himawari stepped aside, Shinji unleashed his gravity ability, propelling her into the house before swiftly shutting the door behind them. He erupted into laughter, taunting her as she lay pinned to the floor, and inquired about the nature of her predicament. Inquired about his intentions. As she acknowledged her inability to muster the strength to resist, Shinji approached her with concern, his voice gentle as he inquired if she was all right. She deftly swatted his hand aside, eliciting another ripple of laughter from him. True to the spirit of an explorer who had triumphed over the so-called sweet challenges, he exhibited resilience and determination. Despite her circumstances, she exhibited an extraordinary level of willpower that surpassed the norm. Despite the crushing weight of gravity bearing down on her, she struggled to rise, prompting Shinji to inquire if the aftermath of Namiki's death still unsettled her. At that moment, Himawari began to sense that something was gravely amiss with him, while Shinji observed that his attempts at hypnosis were proving more challenging against her. Nonetheless, he recognized her vulnerability, prompting Himawari to question his motives behind such actions. Shinji responded with a decisive stomp on Namiki's bag. He confessed to having observed his childhood friend for many years, a boy who, though not physically strong, consistently radiated kindness. He continued to overlook the presence of someone like him. As time passed, Namiki's joy radiated increasingly, while Shinji grappled with feelings of unforgiveness towards him. He was convinced that he needed to torment the main character until he descended into genuine despair. With Namiki's presumed death now casting a shadow over everything, Shinji chuckled, reveling in the bittersweet pleasure he found in witnessing the sorrows of others. With tears glistening in her eyes, Himawari unleashed a torrent of frustration, branding him as trash for his complete loss of control. Shinji flashed a sly smile as he intensified the gravitational pressure upon her. He considered the remark to be impolite and uncalled for. He asserted that he was entirely ordinary. Despite her being a talented and admired Ranka explorer, she commanded a significant level of respect from many. He believed that such vulgar language was inappropriate, asserting that Namiki would feel sorrow in the afterlife if he were to witness that scene. Himawari found it difficult to comprehend the lengths he had to go for the main character. With a weary sigh, Shinji expressed his fatigue with the ongoing conversation and escalated his abilities to an even greater level. In a different location, Namiki glanced over his shoulder as he detected the presence of another lurking monster. However, his attempts to detect the creature proved futile. The protagonist once again caught the sound of the woman's voice echoing in his ears, saying, The protagonist reflected on humanity's relentless pursuit to unravel the mysteries of their adversaries, a tendency that often led to hasty conclusions. She recounted her own painful experiences resulting from this impulsive curiosity. Namiki contemplated the possibility that the monster he had encountered earlier might have already clashed with another explorer, realizing that this time she was well prepared for what lay ahead. The existence of a water dragon capable of speaking the human language was an unprecedented phenomenon. He found himself lacking sufficient information about her. The woman expressed her desire for a conversation and inquired about the reason for his silence at that moment. She asserted that a one-sided conversation ultimately led to nothing, emphasizing that true strength required one to be both firm and imposing. Nevertheless, Namiki responded that she struck him as the kind of person who would engage in relentless conversation. When she questioned whether he was mocking her, uncertainty flickered across his face. After a brief pause, she ultimately conceded, her expression reflecting a moment of understanding regarding his perspective. Irritation seeping into her demeanor, she advanced with lethal intent, coldly reminding him that in her eyes, he was nothing more than an insignificant mortal. The woman cautioned him against becoming too arrogant simply because he had triumphed over her dog. The protagonist activated his body reinforcement, striving to project an aura of strength. Yet beneath the surface, he understood that a genuine opportunity to triumph still eluded him. The protagonist realized that utilizing divine appraisal in that location could significantly enhance his abilities, potentially allowing him to evolve swiftly enough to balance the odds of the confrontation. Realizing the urgency of his situation, he understood that hesitation was not an option, Survival was paramount before he could return to confront Shinji and resolve their conflict. Namiki prepared to launch his assault, contemplating the strategy of generating a blind spot with flames before charging in for a decisive straight slash. He unleashed a devastating fire attack at full power. The creature observed intently, its curiosity piqued by the display of his abilities. He unleashed his powerful magic, known as the Frenzy Dance of Flames. He summoned a colossal phoenix that unleashed chaos throughout the dungeon. Despite the protagonist's efforts, the beast effortlessly evaded his attack and let out a mocking laugh, declaring that this was her domain. She understood the situation better than anyone else, articulating that his victory over the previous opponent was solely due to a disparity in power. However, she was poised to seize command over his magic with effortless ease. It dawned on Namiki far too late that he had been completely unaware of the concept of magic control. She chuckled at his naivety and casually revealed that she wielded annihilation-class magic. It was something far beyond his understanding. Namiki pondered whether she possessed the ability to decipher his thoughts. The annihilation class represented an extraordinary level of power, one that the protagonist had never conceived could possibly exist. She elaborated that a legendary class existed, nestled between the realms of advanced and annihilation. She exemplified her superiority, unmistakably highlighting the vast distance between their standings. In order to counteract magic of that caliber, one needed only two. Namiki concluded their special class would suffice. He came to understand that, in spite of it all, she appeared to be instructing him with a remarkable sense of calm. She confidently declared that he remained no threat whatsoever. To stand a chance against her, he realized that he would need to amass at least 4,000 power points. The protagonist was astonished by the notion that anyone could attain level 4,000, a feat that appeared utterly impossible to him. He accessed his status and verified the information. The protagonist had achieved level 452, boasting all attributes ranked at a commendable B. Despite the odds, he came to the formidable conclusion that his strength had already reached a level sufficient to vanquish an advanced Orthros. It became evident that she operated on an entirely different level of expertise. Namiki found herself contemplating the true essence of her identity. He endeavored to approach the situation with a sense of composure, recalling her warning about the consequences she faced last time for acting recklessly. The events began with Orochi, a formidable creature that in recent years had emerged from the depths of the dungeons to launch devastating assaults on cities. Orochi commanded a formidable presence as a highly ranked dragon, his terrifying strength and destructive fire instilling fear in all who crossed his path. Rank A explorers found themselves grappling with the formidable Orochi, prompting the association to assemble its most powerful members. In response to this dire challenge, a specialized team was formed with the sole purpose of subduing the fearsome creature. During the fierce battle, several vulnerabilities became apparent. The team promptly adjusted their strategy to adopt a more aggressive approach. However, despite their efforts, they still found themselves unable to conquer their formidable opponent. Upon hearing those words, Namiki began to entertain the unsettling notion that he might be conversing with Orochi itself. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he understood that with his current strength, he stood little chance and needed to devise a plan for his escape. In an effort to buy himself some time, he resolved to continue the conversation. He inquired about her fascination with someone as frail as himself. She explained that it stemmed from sheer curiosity. He sought to comprehend how someone so feeble had managed to usurp a fragment of her formidable power. She revealed that this was the genuine reason for her conversation with him. Without warning, a hand emerged from the glowing confines of a magic circle. A hand extended, presenting an item. Namiki's eyes widened in disbelief as he inquired about the source of that unexpected revelation. She confessed to having taken it from the possessions of humans, her numerous tails swaying playfully as she spoke. Namiki contemplated the possibility that other beings, akin to herself, roamed the world, unleashing chaos and destruction. The way she spoke revealed to him that the arm emerging from the magic circle was a manifestation of Orochi's true main body. Orochi observed the silence enveloping him once more and inquired whether it stemmed from uncertainty about what to say delay or a reluctance to respond at all. Namiki believes that he would require a minimum of level 4000 to confront her on equal ground. Faced with insurmountable odds, he resolved to employ his formidable ability known as God's Test. The skill surged to life, meticulously evaluating the enemy's level while strategizing potential approaches for the confrontation ahead. As the system processed the data, Namiki suddenly recognized a potential path to extricate himself from his predicament. The analysis revealed that he would require 25 million experience points to achieve the next significant power advancement. Orochi gasped in astonishment as Namiki abruptly surged forward with unexpected determination. He tugged forcefully on the arm emerging from the magic circle. He successfully severed her right arm. A scream of pain erupted from him, echoing the torment coursing through his body. The moment the system completed its evaluation, it became clear that dealing damage to a disaster-ranked creature such as Orochi would require an exceptional strategy. He was awarded a staggering 25 million points, propelling him directly to level 2200. Furthermore, he unlocked a new skill, igniting a surge of potential within him. He stood in awe, astonished by the sheer magnitude of his own astonishing growth, struggling to comprehend the reality before him. He acquired a powerful technique known as ultra-physical enhancement. The protagonist recognized that God's Test had indicated the optimal moment for a decisive maneuver, prompting him to sever the arm with precision. Even in his injured state, Orochi conceded that the human had achieved something remarkable. Fury coursed through her veins as she grappled with the betrayal of his surprise attack, unable to accept that he had hurt her in such a deceitful manner. Namiki expressed his apologies but emphasized the urgency of the situation, stating that he couldn't afford to waste any time in his quest to stop Shinji. The protagonist recognized that Himawari was a rank A explorer, fully capable of defending herself. Yet, a sense of foreboding compelled him to take action. Orochi raced toward her with urgent determination. Recognizing that he was lost in his own thoughts, she resolved not to remain a mere spectator any longer. After enduring the agony of having her arm severed, a fierce determination ignited within her. She vowed to confront him directly and end things once and for all. She commanded her tails to distract him, buying time until she could confront him face to face. He swiftly evaded an attack that had been launched at him with precision. Namiki came to the profound realization that her strength extended beyond merely her arm, but also the immense, monstrous figure looming before him. The weight of her presence was suffocating and even. Doubt clouded his thoughts regarding victory, even with the recent level up he had achieved. He activated God's Test once more. He meticulously reviewed the information he had gathered. He fortified his own physique. Despite enduring excruciating pain, he pressed on. He lunged towards her yet. He was effortlessly tossed aside, as if he weighed nothing at all. The force of the impact reverberated powerfully through the surroundings. He inadvertently let his sword slip from his grasp. He grappled with the piercing clarity of his surroundings. A searing pain coursed through his body, igniting every nerve ending in an agonizing symphony. Lacking the power to deliver effective strikes, he observed the situation deteriorate as the system executed its new calculations. Upon reading the result, he felt a sudden chill seize him, leaving him momentarily paralyzed. He pondered whether this implied a chance for victory, and the conclusion pointed towards the utilization of ultra-physical enhancement. Even amidst his confusion, he resolved to act without hesitation. As he activated the skill, an intense heat enveloped his body, igniting like flames and catching him off guard. The protagonist, Orochi, stood as a figure shrouded in mystery and power. The protagonist sensed that he was on the brink of losing control at any moment. He seized his sword with a determined grip. With a swift and decisive strike, he cleaved the monster in two. The system verified that the target had been successfully eliminated. The protagonist realized that the divine trial had come to its conclusion. As the damage and actions were meticulously calculated, the point system resumed its assessment. Ultimately, the results revealed a rank of AA, a testament to his combat proficiency, which earned him nearly 11 million points. With this monumental achievement, Namiki surged upward, leaping an astonishing 600 levels in one swift motion. Simultaneously, Shinji found himself engaged in a phone call. He urgently requested immediate transport while observing the surroundings intently. Himawari lay sprawled on the ground, her figure motionless against the backdrop of the scene. In the aftermath of the fierce battle, Namiki had acquired 3 new skills: mental mapping, weakness detection, and an enhancement to his insight. Namiki sensed a dizzying whirl in his mind, likely the result of his excessive reliance on ultra-body fortification. The protagonist crumpled to the ground, blood spilling from his lips. A searing pain engulfed his body. He found himself engulfed in confusion, struggling to grasp the events unfolding around him. As he accessed his status, he suddenly understood the gravity of his physical condition, recognizing that it had become critical. His blood alcohol level was alarmingly high, bordering on the absurd. The relentless spinning of the world around him made it clear that he could not recklessly exploit such a powerful skill. As he glanced back, a peculiar substance began to emerge from the carcass of the vanquished monster, like a wisp of gas dissipating into the air. This suggested that, even in death, it could still possess a semblance of life. The gas appeared to be flowing toward the main body. He recalled that reaching at least level 4000 was essential to confront Orochi. Given his present strength, he stood no chance against the main body. Before proceeding, he recognized the urgent need to return and confront Shinji. The protagonist knew he had to intervene and put a stop to that man. As he scanned the area, his eyes fell upon a cell phone abandoned on the ground. It was the very same object that Orochi had dispatched through the enigmatic magic circle. Determined, he bent down and grasped the object in his hand. Namaki dashed forward, unleashing his abilities. Through the process of mental mapping, he uncovered a startling revelation. He discovered that he was not on the 5th floor, but rather the 20th. That marked the deepest point ever reached by any explorer, a remarkable feat for someone who had previously ventured only as far as the 10th floor. He had never envisioned plummeting from the 1st to the 20th floor after encountering Shinji. With the divine trial as his guide, he verified that he was now traversing the 18th level. He found himself on the ground floor, while his target resided on the 25th. The system estimated that contact would be established in approximately 45 minutes. However, before that moment arrived, Orochi's true form was closing in on him. The calculations began to assess the required strength necessary to vanquish the foe. He contemplated the necessary experience points needed for advancement. As he pondered his escape, he received a notification indicating the presence of several high-level monsters ahead. Suddenly, a multitude of menacing monsters emerged from the shadows. In his journey, suddenly the protagonist understood that every moment was precious and that he could not afford to squander any time. The only viable path for him was to rapidly enhance his skills and abilities. The protagonist meticulously employed his skills to scrutinize the enemies, deftly uncovering their vulnerabilities. Namaki concentrated intently on observing. The protagonist recalibrated his strategy. He adeptly targeted every vulnerable spot, executing his strikes with precision to bring them down. He summoned 3 Baphomets, elevating his score and successfully advancing to the next stage of the divine trial. The protagonist experienced yet another surge in his levels. However, the anguish surging through his body intensified as well. As he pivoted, a fearsome 3-headed monster barreled toward him with alarming speed. He unleashed a formidable torrent of water, striking with unparalleled force. The blow struck with pinpoint accuracy. He unleashed a powerful strike that severed one of the heads from the Cerberus, with a swift and incisive judgment. However, the creature continued to draw breath, prompting him to reconsider his next move. He resolved to continue battling, determined to dismantle everything that obstructed his path. His ambition was to meticulously perfect the divine trial until he extracted every possible benefit from it. Following further analysis, he delved deeper into the matter. He accumulated approximately 70,000 experience points. With that accomplishment, he ascended to level 3000. He successfully unlocked a new skill known as double slash. The protagonist was astonished to receive a technique for a sword style so rare. However, he soon understood that the struggle was only beginning. The remaining Baphomets appeared to have summoned reinforcements. The monsters engaged in a peculiar and low-toned conversation among themselves, even as his stamina teetered on the brink of exhaustion. Namaki's thoughts drifted to Himawari, leading him to conclude that venturing down there was not an option. At that moment, he sensed a significantly more formidable presence approaching. He pivoted to investigate the source of the sound. Behind him, suddenly a colossal creature with striking red eyes emerged, towering over the other monsters. The sudden assault struck without warning, propelling him backward with overwhelming force. As he pondered the mysterious presence of golems on that floor, it seemed as though the monsters were collaborating with one another. The simultaneous activation of magic circles by multiple Baphomets filled the air with a palpable tension. Caught off guard, Namaki narrowly evaded the impending impact of the object. A sudden onslaught of magical assaults rained down upon them. As he tumbled to the ground, a firm grip seized his leg. He was abruptly pulled into the heart of a pulsating magic circle. Recognizing the urgency of his situation, he understood that swift action was essential. As the test from the god reset, he began formulating a new strategy while remaining immobilized. He found himself encircled by a menacing group of Baphomets, poised to strike at any moment. As the calculations reached their conclusion, Namaki executed the optimized maneuver with precision, unleashing a double slash that struck down his foes. He swiftly neutralized the foes that were nearest to him. Meanwhile, the others unleashed a barrage of attacks from afar. Namaki relentlessly pressed on, unwavering in his determination, as his evaluation points steadily ascended. However, the relentless application of his abilities drained him, leaving him both weary and in agony. At that moment, a golem surged from behind, poised to strike at him. Meanwhile, Himawari stood poised, a figure of intrigue and determination. Confined within the restraints of a locked room, he gradually regained consciousness after an extended period of unawareness. With a chuckle, Shinji Yukimura inquired. He wondered if she had finally awakened. He claimed that his charm was effective only in the initial moments. He found himself genuinely impressed by her unwavering willpower. He remarked that the presence of multiple women made things significantly simpler. Himawari insisted on understanding his true intentions. Shinji clasped her face gently, looking into her eyes as he confessed that he had never harbored any feelings for her. Her eyes betrayed a steadfast conviction, reflecting an unwavering belief that Namaki still lived. He found it incomprehensible that she could dismiss the main character's worthiness as an explorer while simultaneously. It appeared that she genuinely cared. Himawari recounted that following a particular incident, Namaki developed an intense obsession with becoming stronger. The protagonist began to put his own life on the line, motivated by a desperate resolve. She urged him to cease his actions before he found himself in grave danger. Nevertheless, she affirmed that the decision to persist lay solely in his hands as he was charting his own course through life. Deep within her heart, she held a conviction that he would not succumb so easily. She clung to the hope that he was still alive. Concurrently, Namaki confronted the imposing golem and summoned his formidable abilities. He wielded water magic to obliterate its form. With that accomplishment, he successfully cleared another stage of the god's trial, earning 9 million experience points and advancing his level even further. The protagonist clung to life with unwavering determination, fueled by a desperate desire to return to Himawari, no matter the cost. The system's voice resonated, declaring that he had achieved the remarkable milestone of level 600. The protagonist found himself bewildered as he learned that the reconstruction would commence without delay. Namaki pondered the significance of that reconstruction, sensing a weightiness enveloping his body. It appeared to be disintegrating from within. As the pain subsided, he caught sight of more monsters encircled him, their menacing presence closing in. As Baphomet murmured an incoherent stream of words, he suddenly became aware of a barrier enveloping him, and he endeavored to unravel the mystery of what it truly was. The trial ordained by the divine recommenced, and the scores were meticulously recorded. Just as the new attacks came hurtling toward him, he lunged for his sword. Namaki swiftly evaded, skillfully neutralizing the incoming blows once more, however. The relentless onslaught of the Baphomets showed no signs of abating. He repeatedly employed the double slash technique to counter magic with his own mystical abilities. The neutralizations consistently garnered him points, while the minutes slipped away, leaving him to focus solely on his defense for a relentless 30-minute stretch. His weariness weighed heavily upon him, a sensation as if his body were on the brink of collapse at any moment. The barrier prevented him from launching a direct counterattack as he had done in the past. The relentless pain gnawed at him, causing his dodges to falter as he struggled to maintain his composure even in the face of adversity. The trial set forth by the gods had finally reached its conclusion. He began tallying the points. The protagonist gained an impressive 8 million experience points, and he rapidly ascended several levels in a matter of minutes. He had reached level 3 as a member of Team 2, out of a total of 8 teams. Only 200 levels remained for him to reach the required minimum. He needed to activate that reconstruction mechanism. The protagonist remained bewildered by its meaning. Just then, Orochi materialized before him, keenly observing the weariness etched across his face. Namaki pivoted on his heel, his gaze locking onto Orochi's original form. She declared that she had finally arrived in her true form. She appeared humanoid and weary, having devoted countless hours to her arduous journey towards. Namaki marveled at how she had managed to close the distance between them across 5 floors in mere minutes. He navigated through the barrier, drawing nearer. He surveyed the chaos he had created in his wake. In that moment, he comprehended the chilling truth. Every monster he had battled until now had been commanded by her. Orochi inquired whether he was paying attention. However, Namaki found himself bewildered as he caught her intense gaze. The chains clamped firmly around his right arm. He was convinced he had severed her arm, leaving him perplexed at its miraculous return. Curiosity began to stir within him as he pondered the possibility of her regenerative abilities. Observing the direction of his gaze, Orochi remarked that it caused him some discomfort, yet, for her, losing a piece of her own body felt insignificant. Even in the face of injury, she remained resolute. She confessed to herself that a part of her reveled in the thought of ending his life at that very moment. However, initially she demanded the return of a cherished possession that rightfully belonged to her, but her pleas went unanswered. The protagonist inquired about the subject she was referring to. Orochi's irritation flared as he asserted that he understood her meaning all too well, his gaze following her finger to the object he had carelessly retrieved from the floor. Namaki came to the realization that it was the phone. He inquired whether he could depart after returning the item. However, Orochi asserted that the situation was not that simple. She conceded that he had indeed grown stronger than he had been previously. Yet it remained insufficient to surpass her prowess. Namaki came to the sobering realization that he was still far from his goal. Knowing he required an additional 200 levels to confront her on equal terms, the protagonist realized that if he continued at his current pace, the pain and exhaustion would ultimately overwhelm his body before he could reach that goal. Orochi issued a menacing warning, threatening to end his life if he failed to relinquish what he had stolen. The system initiated a restart of the divine trial. Determined to act swiftly, Namaki resolved to go all in, embracing the notion of total commitment. The system assessed the experience he had amassed. He recognized the necessity for change and modified his actions accordingly. The protagonist surged forward, executing a powerful double slash aimed directly at Orochi. He intercepted the attack. Sustaining nothing more than a light scratch on her cheek, she swiftly prepared to launch a counterattack, mocking him with a taunt that the injury was utterly pathetic for a so-called special attack. Namaki's experience surged by an astonishing 13 million, propelling his levels to rise rapidly. He reached the remarkable milestone of level 4000, his progress signaling a significant achievement in his journey. His body immediately began the process of reconstruction. A sudden explosion erupted nearby, causing Orochi to flinch in surprise. As the smoke dissipated, Namaki became aware that his body had transformed following the evolution. Orochi sensed an unfamiliar weight of pressure emanating from him. The protagonist had become numb to the pain that once plagued him. Simultaneously, his senses heightened to an even sharper acuity. Observing the current situation, Orochi commanded her monsters to launch an assault, seizing what she perceived as the optimal opportunity. The entire group unleashed their assaults simultaneously. Namaki sprang into the air with effortless agility. He deftly navigated through the onslaught of attacks as if they were mere whispers in the wind. Orochi stood astonished, overwhelmed by the protagonist's incredible strength and lightning-fast speed. Within mere moments, he abruptly disengaged. An overwhelming barrage of challenges surged toward him. Despite the daunting odds stacked against him, Namaki initiated the divine test once more, and within mere seconds, the analysis concluded. The system disclosed that Orochi was a creature of catastrophic proportions emerged, embodying the very essence of a disaster-class monster. She commanded a total of 12 units. His newfound skill enabled him to land with remarkable stability, even amidst yet another barrage of relentless assaults. Namaki launched himself at the horde of monsters, his determination fueling every stride. Orochi stood in awe as he witnessed a remarkable surge in speed, leaving him momentarily stunned. He effortlessly overwhelmed anyone who dared to stand in his way. He drove his evolved double slash to its utmost limits. The onslaught of strikes intensified. He dispatched the monsters with ruthless efficiency, leaving them no opportunity to defend themselves. The system seamlessly refreshed his statistics, demonstrating that he was now prepared to confront Orochi directly. She observed multiple vulnerabilities in his movements. He focused on his opponent's vulnerable back and resolved to launch a surprise attack from that position. However, the protagonist managed to evade the bullet just in time, resulting in the shot merely grazing his shoulder as he deftly dodged and sprinted sideways at the last moment. Irritated, Orochi let out a sharp click of her tongue. He unleashed a water bullet that relentlessly pursued him. When she observed Namaki appearing simultaneously in multiple locations, it seemed as though he had somehow divided himself. The protagonist stood in stunned disbelief, grappling with the revelation of his newfound ability. Orochi found himself overwhelmed, succumbing to a relentless barrage of attacks from every angle. With that decisive move, Namaki emerged victorious over her opponent. He exhaled deeply as the system provided its confirmation. The target lay defeated, and as he inhaled deeply, the realization washed over him that he had triumphed in every aspect of his mission. He stood amidst the wreckage, surveying the desolation that surrounded him. Despite everything, he found himself continuously pondering the transformation that was overtaking him since his arrival. The sensation of making those precise cuts on the floor remained vivid in his memory. Yet Namaki's recollections remained hazy, slipping just beyond his grasp. Accomplished, despite her monstrous nature, Orochi held a position of exceptionally high rank. Confronting the creature in such a state felt nearly insurmountable for him. Fortunately, his recently awakened abilities had steered them away from disaster, compelling him to escape while he still had the chance. Suddenly, a booming laughter resonated through the air as she remarked in disbelief at how effortlessly she had been defeated. As he pivoted to face her, as Namaki turned, he was confronted with an astonishing spectacle. The monster's body radiated a brilliant glow. She continued speaking as if nothing had transpired, leaving him in a state of stunned silence. He found himself pondering the possibility of her immortality. As Orochi chuckled, she conceded her earlier misjudgment of him. Despite enduring such a brutal attack, there lingered a sense of uncertainty. The protagonist realized that the most effective approach was to unleash his full power in a single, decisive blow. It had been quite some time since anyone had succeeded in. He swiftly sought to turn the tables on her, as the system alerted him to the rapid surge of magical energy. Surpassing the previously established threat levels, he propelled forward with renewed determination. Namaki observed as her body seamlessly began to regenerate, the wounds mending before her eyes. They reunited as she chuckled at the expression on his face. Her creatures braced themselves for battle, prepared to unleash their fury in the impending clash. He instinctively shielded his eyes from the blinding burst of light approaching him. As his vision gradually returned, he caught sight of Orochi, encircled by a menacing group of various monsters. He struggled to comprehend that all those creatures had been concealed within her all along. The demon caressed one of the creatures, a sly smirk gracing his lips as he remarked that it must be so astonished that it was rendered incapable of uttering a sound. She let out another laugh, remarking that no one would ever anticipate such a turn of events after all that had transpired. This was due to the fact that the protagonist had compelled her to engage in a serious battle. No longer needing to restrain herself, Orochi unleashed her tails in a swift and furious motion towards him. Monsters surged forward in unison, but Namaki narrowly evaded their onslaught and reactivated the divine test once more. The system refreshed the data on the opponent, unveiling a formidable figure adorned with 6 majestic tails. Each creature possessed unique abilities, and even those considered weaker than the main entity showcased distinct strengths. Their strength propelled him forward relentlessly, ensuring he remained in constant motion. He bolted from the spot, his heart racing, but the monstrous threats pursued him relentlessly, remaining far too close for comfort. Numerous figures surrounded him, effectively boxing him in from every direction. Despite having undergone evolution, Namaki realized that his strength alone was insufficient to shoulder the burden of everything on his own. Faced with mounting pressure, he found himself at the mercy of one of them, ultimately succumbing to a sharp bite and tumbled to the earth. His body was flung through the air, and in the chaos of his descent, he lost grip on his sword. Rising to his feet, fueled by anger, he recognized that the monsters were striking with such precision that any misstep could be disastrous. The system reported significant blood loss stemming from the bite on his right shoulder. Orochi approached with a mocking stride, taunting him by inquiring about the whereabouts of his once formidable speed and power. Seizing the opportunity, she commanded the monsters to eliminate him once and for all. Namaki contemplated how he might triumph over her despite facing a predicament even more dire than the one at the outset. The protagonist racked his brain, searching for a strategy or an opportunity to launch a counterattack. The exhilaration of control and the triumph of relying on his own strength dissipated in an instant. He contemplated the potential of using that ability once more. It could shift the tides of the game, yet it also posed a risk of inflicting even greater pain. Armed with the insights from the divine test, he meticulously calculated the most efficient actions and resolved to adhere to the plan it prescribed. A powerful force began to surge within him, building in intensity. The atmosphere pulsated with intensity, spiraling spiraling into a wild chaos that felt utterly uncontrollable. As the monster launched its ferocious assault, Namaki braced himself for the impending confrontation. He skillfully evaded the strike and launched a fierce counterattack. Gripping the sword tightly, he hurled it with precise determination. The creature's teeth clashed with tremendous force, yet they remained unyielding against the onslaught. He could sense the enemy's power surging with an overwhelming force. Ultimately, despite awakening his newfound strength, the protagonist found himself still outmatched by his opponents. His body throbbed with excruciating pain, while his vision swirled in a dizzying haze. Until the monster's fire struck him directly. He was propelled across the battlefield by a relentless onslaught of strikes. The monsters surged forth relentlessly, one after another, with no pause in their onslaught. The overwhelming pressure triggered the activation of a damage reduction skill within the system. However, it proved insufficient to shield him entirely from harm. He narrowly escaped death in that moment. Narrowly evading a deadly strike, Orochi found himself crashing to the ground as he shouted out in desperation. He demanded to know how much longer the protagonist would continue the charade, commanding the monsters to eliminate him without delay. Despite the challenges he faced, Namaki persistently strategized, seeking a way to turn the situation to his advantage. When the demon herself inquired about his hesitation to move, he became aware of a singular monster that stood out from the rest. The creature savored the crimson liquid that coated its hand, licking it with a predatory satisfaction. The others turned their gazes toward it, intrigued by its presence. Orochi found himself bewildered, struggling to grasp the unfolding events, yet a palpable sense of unease hung in the air as all the monsters began to sway unsteadily, their eyes glazing over after tasting Namaki's blood. Their menacing demeanor dissipated. He unexpectedly transformed into a strangely compliant figure, rendering Orochi utterly speechless. With an absence of awareness reflected in their vacant, silly expressions, they appeared utterly disengaged from reality. Namaki began to grasp the concept as he reflected on the fortification he had implemented earlier. Elevating the alcohol content in his bloodstream, it rendered him intoxicated. By consuming his blood, the monsters entered a frenzied state reminiscent of a berserker, albeit one fueled by intoxication, echoing the legendary tale of Yamada no Orochi. He recognized the potential advantage of leveraging its connection to alcohol. Namaki flashed a smile as Orochi desperately shouted for the monsters to regain their senses and cease their erratic behavior. Fury coursed through her veins, yet she found herself powerless to command their obedience. Despite the knowledge of past events, the creatures continued to behave in defiance of her will. As Orochi pivoted, he dismissed the fools surrounding him. She witnessed the protagonist extract additional blood from his own arm. Determined to satisfy their craving for the liquid, he decided to provide them with even more. Shocked, Orochi inquired about his intentions. Namaki initiated his enhanced physical fortification, channeling newfound strength and resilience into his body. The protagonist provocatively challenged the monsters, daring them to respond. He summoned them all at once to engage in battle. As the creatures surged forward, he sensed that the volume of blood spilled would be sufficient to shift the balance of power. The moment the first assailant lunged at him, the protagonist anticipated the outcome as it succumbed to intoxication once more, coming to a complete halt. However, just as Namaki was poised to seize the opportunity, pain surged through him, forcing him to double over in agony. A formidable beast lunged forward with ferocious intent. He narrowly evaded the attack. He scrambled up the creature's formidable scales, seeking refuge from the danger below. Determined, he beckoned them once more, urging them to consume even greater quantities of his blood. Soon, the air was thick with the scent of alcohol, and the revelers were thoroughly intoxicated. He even inquired whether they were finding it enjoyable. Seizing the moment while the monsters were preoccupied, he recognized the urgency to act without hesitation. At that moment, Orochi emerged from the shadows and plunged his blade into him. He reflected on his tendency to overanalyze situations during the most inopportune moments, even as her smile lingered, seemingly unbothered. Namaki anticipated the move and skillfully pivoted, deeming her response predictable. Having executed the same maneuver in the past, she found that he could now decipher her movements and foresee her impending strike. Caught off guard, Orochi inquired about the protagonist's intentions, but he seized her wrist just as she attempted to retreat. His intention was unmistakable. He aimed to compel her to drink his blood as well. She fought against him, pleading for him to cease his actions. However, the moment had slipped away, the impact struck swiftly. Orochi succumbed to the effects of alcohol, becoming increasingly intoxicated. She implored him, pleading for her release. As he released her from his grasp, Namaki took a few cautious steps backward, gathering her strength to rise once more. However, it was evident that she was deeply affected. Even in her inebriated state, she maintained her menacing demeanor toward him. As his awareness began to fade away gradually, the weight of his surroundings intensified. Seizing the perfect opportunity, he resolved to battle until the very end. Even teetering on the brink of unconsciousness, he rushed in to save her while Orochi shouted at the monsters, bewildered by their lack of response. As the tension in the air dissipated, the monsters let out resigned sighs and collapsed onto the ground, becoming eerily still. Orochi, puzzled by this sudden turn of events, inquired about what was unfolding before him. Seizing the opportunity, the protagonist unleashed his physical reinforcement skill once more too. She spun around, anxiety gripping her as she sensed an impending threat. Understanding the dire situation they were in and acknowledging that they could truly perish if things continued this way, he acted without a moment's pause. He lunged forward, swiftly dispatching each of the monsters in his path once more. With each adversary he vanquished, Namaki ascended in power, ultimately achieving the formidable milestone of level 6000. Simultaneously, Himawari. He remained confined within the room when the girl emerged as the door swung open before her eyes. As she entered the room, Himawari instantly recognized AI. He inquired about her presence at that location. AI remarked that it had been quite a while since they last crossed paths. Upon receiving a message from Shinji requesting her presence, Himawari's suspicions were piqued as she inquired if AI had succumbed to Shinji's alluring charms. This left the other girl perplexed. Her irritation with the situation intensified as Himawari sought to uncover whether AI was being manipulated, determined to make her aware of the truth. AI urged her to refrain from speaking ill of Shinji, emphasizing that he had come to her aid and was, in fact, a good person. AI persistently asserted that Namaki was dead, believing that in such a challenging moment, Shinji had provided solace to both her body and her mind. To Himawari, this revelation only confirmed that her friend's mind was clouded. AI voiced her frustration, expressing that the protagonist had consistently overlooked her. This situation stirred a long-standing jealousy within her towards Himawari. Himawari stood in stunned silence as AI expressed her frustrations. She harbored a deep resentment for both of them due to their actions. He had completed the task, despite Himawari's confusion regarding the reasons behind it. After all, the bond between them had always been strong, marked by a deep sense of camaraderie and mutual understanding. Tears streaming down her face, Himawari expressed her feelings for AI, perceiving her as a little sister and yearning to remain by her side. At that moment, Shinji entered the room, declaring. He hesitated to disrupt the gravity of their serious conversation. AI approached him with a bright smile and he tenderly cradled her face in his hands, encouraging her to build a friendship with Himawari. She expressed her regrets for allowing her emotions to surface. Shinji advised Himawari to show kindness towards her endearing little sister. However, Himawari shouted with urgency. He pressed for answers, questioning the rationale behind his use of hypnosis to perpetrate such terrible acts. Shinji pointedly remarked that her stubbornness had led to the unfortunate situation. His charm consistently fell flat with Himawari, and she inquired about his reasoning for behaving in such a manner. He revealed that he had received communication from the Explorers Association. The association sought to enlist him in the extermination team tasked with eliminating Orochi. He intended to recruit AI and Himawari for his team. He intended to compel Himawari into compliance. AI played a crucial role in the execution of that plan. AI clung to him closely, playfully voicing her complaint that his touch sent delightful tickles across her skin. The sight ignited a fierce anger within Himawari. With a confident smile, Shinji asserted that Himawari would join the team against her will, determined not to leave AI by herself. Meanwhile, Namaki's vitality had plummeted to a mere 5%, leaving him in a perilous state. On the brink of death, he still sensed the vitality coursing through him. However, only 137 seconds remained on the clock. He found himself baffled by the fact that he remained fully aware. He only sensed the warmth of another's touch against his skin, unaware of its significance. His head nestled comfortably in Orochi's lap. As the countdown ticked away, the system ominously alerted him that only 90 seconds remained. The demon was acutely aware of the truth, and Namiki couldn't shake the thought that he should have severed her head long before this moment. Orochi lamented the situation, clarifying that they comprised 8 distinct entities and would only be vanquished if all were defeated. Namiki muttered her dissatisfaction, labeling herself a monster, which visibly offended Orochi. Despite this, she acknowledged his unexpected prowess in almost defeating them entirely. With a smile, she expressed their willingness to accept the situation. As the countdown dwindled to a mere 30 seconds, he felt the weight of urgency pressing upon him. Perplexed, Namiki struggled to grasp her meaning, while Orochi's impatience grew as he found himself compelled to reiterate his explanation. Only 10 seconds remained before the protagonist faced his demise. Orochi came to the stark realization that the situation had reached a critical juncture. Determined to take swift action, she retrieved an object from within the confines of a magic circuit. As he inquired about her intentions, she offered no clear response. With a chilling smile, she plunged the dagger deep into his chest. She bid her master good night, and the system initiated the divine observation, marking the beginning of synchronization between Namiki and Orochi. As the system confirmed the connection between them, new abilities unveiled themselves, and his statistics surged dramatically. As the protagonist stirred from his slumber, he spotted one of the monsters looming beside him, causing him to spring up in a fervent panic. However, he soon came to the realization that the creature was merely observing him. Displaying an atmosphere devoid of hostility, he approached the situation with calmness. He searched for his sword, but it eluded him. Instead, his hand brushed against an unexpected surface. He came to the unsettling realization that Orochi had been deceitful all along. Startled once more, he struggled to comprehend the presence of his enemy in that moment. The protagonist lay sleeping peacefully, enveloped in a serene slumber. To his dismay, he realized that he was entirely unclothed. This only added to the surreal atmosphere surrounding him. Unsure of how to respond, he rose hurriedly to gather his belongings, eager to escape the situation as swiftly as possible. One of the monstrous creatures approached and affectionately brushed against him. Namiki implored the noise to cease, but the sound stirred Orochi from his slumber. She voiced her complaint only to realize he was standing before her, prompting a smile to blossom on her face. The protagonist felt a surge of joy upon discovering that his master had regained consciousness. Soon, he discovered a fresh set of clothes to wear. Orochi complimented the way the clothes accentuated his appearance. Despite being fragments pilfered from humans deep within the dungeon, they held a unique significance. Nevertheless, these garments were imbued with magical protection, crafted specifically for him. This prompted him to seek an explanation. Namiki grappled with the bewildering reality of his survival, struggling to comprehend how he had emerged unscathed from the chaos that had unfolded. Orochi suddenly recognized that she had yet to provide any explanation. The two of them settled into their seats, ready to engage in conversation. She revealed that a contract had been forged, stemming from the fact that he had once met his demise. He successfully synchronized his movements with hers just in time. At that moment, the protagonist came to a stark realization. The haunting memory of the dagger piercing his chest was indeed a vivid truth. If that were the case, he pondered, he found himself in the same predicament as her and questioned whether he had transformed into a monster. Orochi firmly declined. He struggled to comprehend the reality that he was now irrevocably connected to her. He inquired about the meaning behind it. Contemplating the best way to express her thoughts, she turned to him and posed a question. He gently closed his eyes and requested that she allow him to lend it to her. Even in his uncertainty, Namiki consented and inquired about her true identity. As she reflected on her interactions, it dawned on her that she had never truly introduced herself to anyone. Despite being known as Orochi, her true name was Hachai. He gently shut his eyes and obediently followed her request. Out of the blue, an unsettling sensation washed over him. It felt as though he were observing himself from a distance. Hachai inquired about the experience of seeing his own body through her eyes. He confessed that it felt peculiar, yet he was beginning to understand. He had effectively unlocked Hachai's powers, much to her delight as she laughed, pleased by how quickly he grasped the concept. The bond they shared significantly significantly enhanced his stats, and she resolved to provide a more thorough explanation at a later time. Meanwhile, the members of the Explorers Association convened in a conference room located on the 3rd floor. Ishihara Katsuhiko, the esteemed leader of the subjugation squad and a rank B explorer, commanded respect and authority. The protagonist convened a meeting with everyone to strategize on the defeat of Orochi. In recent days, they had witnessed a surge in attacks within the dungeons linked to her, and despite their efforts, they had only been able to stave off a few of Orochi's minions while providing assistance to the afflicted cities. With the assistance of law enforcement and investigators, the extent of the devastation became clear, necessitating extensive rebuilding efforts across multiple areas. Ayaka Koigoku revealed that they were aware Orochi possessed 6 distinct forms and had already identified several weaknesses from their previous encounter. The protagonist had discovered that Orochi's vulnerability lay in a high concentration of alcohol. During past confrontations, they had successfully injected her with it, resulting in significant damage. The protagonist and his companions finally grasped the reason behind monsters being able to experience intoxication much like humans. The tale of Yamada no Orochi began to resonate with Ishihara, revealing its profound significance. He revealed that they were collaborating with a major corporation to procure a substantial quantity of alcohol. He intended to prepare at once, designating the 4th floor of the dungeon as their battleground. They planned to entice Orochi to that location and intoxicate her sufficiently to eliminate her. Ayaka emphasized the importance of unity in their battle, declaring that someone would take charge of the front line. At that moment, a commanding voice emerged, instructing them to entrust everything to him. Shinji entered the room, flanked by a group of girls. Ishihara recognized him and, in a gesture of politeness, inquired if he was truly capable of managing the situation. Shinji chuckled, confidently reassuring his ally that his team was fully prepared for the mission ahead. Ishihara was taken aback to discover that, in addition to a formidable group, Himawari stood resolutely by his side. Meanwhile, deep within the shadows of the dungeon, Hachai glided through the shimmering water alongside Namiki, both enveloped within a sphere that flowed gracefully down the river. The protagonist marveled at the practicality of the magic before him. He began to grasp the reasons behind his numerous defeats in battle. Understanding the speed at which she had ascended numerous floors became clear to him. She had navigated through the water. Hachai chuckled, expressing that while it was an impressive feat, it also left one feeling utterly drained from such magical exertion. She remarked that transforming into a dragon would simplify her challenges. Namiki inquired about the reason behind her hesitation to take action. Hachai paused, a realization dawning upon him that he had inadvertently touched on a sensitive subject. She made it clear that discussing the matter was not her priority at the moment. Finding her insistence peculiar, he acquiesced, especially when she stressed the urgency of their escape from the dungeon. It was at that moment that Hachai began addressing him as Lord Namiki. This revelation left him feeling uneasy, as she insisted that it was perfectly natural to refer to him in such a manner, claiming he had now taken on the role of her master. Despite his protests, Namiki found himself detailing the reasons behind their urgent haste. He declared his intention to rescue Himawari from the underhanded schemes devised by Shinji. Upon hearing the name, Hachai inquired whether Himawari was the protagonist's lover. He dismissed the suggestion, insisting that she was merely someone he held in high regard. Hachai. He chuckled lightly, leaving the reason for his amusement shrouded in mystery. The MC contemplated the possibility that he might finally be ready to confront Shinji. On the 4th floor, a group of explorers congregated in the depths of the dungeon, their anticipation palpable as they prepared for what lay ahead. He stood in the expansive plaza, surrounded by their supplies. Countless barrels of alcohol were brought down by them. Even Himawari joined in to lend her support. Ashihara approached her and inquired if he could have a moment of her time. She consented with a nod. He expressed his gratitude to her for assisting with the mission against Orochi. He remarked on the remarkable sight of a genius girl embarking on her journey as an explorer while still navigating the challenges of high school. Himawari had ascended to rank in an astonishingly brief period, and Ayaka cautioned him about displaying his excessive enthusiasm, reminding him of the responsibility that came with his status as a role model for many. and he responded with an earnest apology. He inquired about her reasons for aligning with Shinji's group. His reputation had been tarnished, leaving much to be desired. Himawari paused, caught in a moment of uncertainty. The protagonist recalled the looming threats associated with offline and the protagonist reflected on the humiliation she had witnessed, and as silence enveloped her, it was evident that the weight of those moments pressed heavily upon her. Ashihara inquired with concern, sensing that something was amiss. However, she declined and explained that her acquaintance with Shinji had been brief. Within her heart, she vowed to rescue offline at any cost. He observed as Shinji found himself encircled by a group of admiring girls. Among the various techniques explored, offline emerged as a compelling method utilized under hypnosis. She mused that if Namiki were present, the outcome could have been dramatically altered. Shinji caught her gaze and smirked with a cruel satisfaction, fully aware of the implications. The pain stung her deeply, yet Himawari resolved to remain steadfast, determined to uncover a means to shatter his enchantment. Out of the blue, a report echoed through the ranks, warning that an entity resembling Orochi was swiftly advancing towards them. The crowd swiftly assembled, converging on the fourth floor of the big plaza. The explorers cataloged the presence of 15 distinct humanoid figures. The protagonist quickly sensed something amiss and urged Hachai to pause for a moment. Although she couldn't grasp the reason behind it, she abruptly slammed on the brakes. He voiced his discontent about the suddenness of her action, but Hachai pointed out that it was he who had instructed her to halt. Namiki revealed that scouts lurked nearby, their sights set firmly upon her. Confusion clouded Hachai's thoughts as he sought to gain a clearer understanding. He revealed to her the phone he had found earlier. Upon glancing at the screen, she immediately identified her children. The headlines buzzed with reports on the subjugation group's 8th operation. In that moment, she recognized the gathering of enemies and inquired about their next course of action. Namiki insisted that they should observe first. With determination surging through him, he initiated the god test. Taken aback by the unexpected sight, he found himself utilizing the skill as Himawari appeared before him. Shinji stood alongside her, revealing that they had convinced the young woman that the protagonist was dead, and she accepted this grim news as truth. He pondered the events that had transpired during his absence. Hachai became aware of it as well. She was fully aware that Shinji held the key to Namiki's anguish and recognized him as an untrustworthy figure. Beside him stood the girl whom his master held in high regard, eliciting a soft chuckle from Hachai. Meanwhile, Shinji informed Himawari that they would be positioned on the front line and emphasized the importance of her standing firm. With a playful laugh, O chided Himawari, urging her not to embarrass Shinji. Shinji chuckled at the witty remark, while O looked on with a smirk. He chuckled as he offered his apologies. Meanwhile, Himawari remained silent, her thoughts swirling in a deep well of contemplation. Determined to free him from the enchantment that bound him, she grappled with uncertainty, unsure of how to shatter the spell. She realized that she had to closely monitor O's actions, unsure of what he might do next. The battle against Orochi represented the opportunity she had long awaited. The sudden stillness enveloped the crowd as they came to an abrupt halt when a distant scream pierced the air, echoing from far away. A man presented Ishibara with a pair of binoculars, informing him that a significant heat source had been detected. The leader advanced, convinced that it was Orochi he faced. Instead, a horde of monstrous beings surged forward, relentlessly pursuing a terrified woman. It appeared as though she was being pursued, prompting Ishibara to instruct his team to prioritize her safety above all else. The strategy centered on rescuing the woman while Shinji's team confronted Orochi, a plan that found unanimous agreement among the scouts. Shinji complied with the orders as well. Despite finding the leader irksome, he persisted. He commanded his team to mobilize. The girls charged forward with determination, ready to strike. Utilizing their formidable powers to confront the creatures, Shinji beamed with enthusiasm as he encouraged Himawari to join the battle. Left with no alternatives, she consented with a heavy heart. As the woman being pursued stumbled and collapsed to the ground, she voiced her fear, trembling in desperation. Himawari dashed forward, determined to lend her assistance. With a swift, powerful swing of her sword, she plunged the blade into the heart of the monster. He turned back and inquired about her well-being. The woman replied affirmatively, expressing her gratitude for the rescue. Additional scouts swiftly gathered to shield her from any potential threats. He decided to leave the monsters to Himawari, confident in her abilities. Every step of the plan unfolded flawlessly, revealing Achai in his clever disguise. The woman came to the startling realization that she was, in fact, the girl whom Namaki admired. She conceded to herself that Himawari had her merits and was not half bad at all. As she walked past Shinji, he couldn't help but admire her beauty, contemplating how he might charm her later. Hachai couldn't help but acknowledge deep down that he possessed an utter lack of class. She remained poised, biding her time for the opportune moment to make her move. As everyone congregated in the area, she resolved to abandon her use of the tails as a means of diversion. Himawari caught sight of the formidable monster she was battling. The creature abruptly altered its course. As he soared toward Shinji and the other girls, an atmosphere of tension enveloped them, leaving everyone uncertain about how to respond. Shinji spun around in alarm as he spotted the monstrous creature hurtling directly toward him. As he attempted to flee, a deafening explosion erupted behind him, shaking the ground beneath his feet. The protagonist found himself perplexed by the creature's singular focus on him. The protagonist resolved to harness his gravity ability, aiming to pin the monstrous creature down with overwhelming force. He immediately harnessed the power. To his astonishment, the ability was abruptly nullified as soon as it began to take effect. The culprit was Hachai, who quietly chuckled to herself while employing her magic nullification, allowing the monsters to bear down on the scout. Shinji collapsed onto the ground, his voice rising in a desperate call to his team. He commanded them to safeguard him. The girls, still entranced by the hypnosis, complied without hesitation. But before they could make their moves, Himawari positioned herself resolutely at the forefront. She braced herself for the impact, absorbing the blow directly and collapsing to the ground. Hachai seethed under his breath, indignantly labeling her an idiot for recklessly throwing herself into the situation. Himawari understood that her master would be infuriated if he discovered the situation. As she attempted to rise, AI observed her, a look of bewilderment crossing his face. Confused by the motive behind the sacrifice, she explained that her duty was to safeguard AI and Namaki, whom she regarded as her disciples. Despite everything, Shinji's hypnosis reactivated. He sternly instructed AI to refrain from using her powers without his prior consent. She was overwhelmed with panic as she witnessed her friend enduring torment under his control. Shinji issued a menacing threat. Himawari understood that if she did not confront Orochi, AI would inevitably suffer the consequences. Himawari cried out, pleading for him to cease his actions. Hachai let out a deep sigh, acknowledging that the situation was spiraling beyond control. As he relayed the information to the main character, Hachai conjured yet another story, catching the scouts off guard with his unexpected narration. Before they had the chance to respond, in a flash, numerous monsters fell to the ground, their forms cleaved by swift blades. Himawari stood frozen in place as she recognized the figure approaching her. He instantly recognized the main character, a look of astonishment spreading across his face. She inquired if it was truly him. Namaki's lips curled into a warm smile. He rushed over as soon as he noticed that she was on the verge of falling. She assured him that she was fine. This revelation prompted him to exhale deeply, a wave of relief washing over him. Yet a burning curiosity lingered within him as he sought to understand the circumstances that had led him to that moment. What astonished her the most was the palpable shift in his aura, particularly. After witnessing him defeat Orochi with a single, decisive move, Namaki let out a weary sigh and inquired about the events that had transpired, questioning what she was doing in that place. Himawari conveyed her intention to recover the belongings he had left behind, casting a glance at Shinji, who remained seated on the ground. He fixed his gaze on the explorer, intrigue flickering in his eyes. Shinji paused, momentarily taken aback before the realization struck him with shock. He inquired about the secret to his survival after enduring such an extensive period in the dungeon. Namaki grasped the weight of the inquiry, recalling how Shinji had brought about his demise before the world was irrevocably altered. Meanwhile, Himawari pivoted to face him. He was taken aback, his eyes widening in disbelief at the unexpected revelation. Upon receiving the news, he felt a sense of validation wash over him, as she had long harbored suspicions that something was amiss. Shinji chuckled, dismissing her claims as nothing more than fanciful fabrications. He derisively pointed at Namaki, taunting him for his status as a mere level 100 weakling, and asserting that defeating Orochi by sheer luck did not equate to true strength. In the distance, Hachai's irritation flared at the blatant disrespect displayed before him. However, it was the protagonist who responded. His aura surged dramatically, causing the explorers in the vicinity humanity to freeze as they succumbed to the overwhelming pressure. Even Shinji found himself confined and isolated. He found himself bewildered by the sheer magnitude of such power. Ayaka's jaw fell open in astonishment. He came to the startling realization that this experience was unlike anything they had ever encountered before. The readings indicated an astounding level of 6000, accompanied by abilities that defied measurement. The two faced each other, their gazes locked for several tense moments until Namaki advanced with determination while Shinji instinctively recoiled in fear. Concern etched on her face, Is reached out to inquire if he was all right. Recognizing the palpable fear in her eyes, he erupted with fury, commanding her to silence while delivering a striking slap. He struck her across the face. Himori dashed forward, eager to assist Ayaka, but the protagonist stood frozen, caught off guard by the unfamiliarity of her appearance. With a hearty laugh, Shinji derided the situation, proclaiming, "It felt disheartening for him to encounter someone whose identity had completely slipped from his memory." AI remained still on the ground, shrouded in silence. Namaki inquired, expressing her suspicion that he had been employing hypnosis on her all along. Shinji chuckled and urged the MC to verify the truth for himself. Having attempted the very same trick on his idol, he found himself taken aback. Namaki turned her gaze toward Himawari, who revealed that she believed she could manage everything on her own afterward. Upon learning of his demise, the weight of sorrow settled heavily upon him. Regrettably, the plan unraveled, leaving him with unforeseen consequences. She ultimately succumbed to Shinji's manipulation. Despite her status as an A-rank adventurer, his abilities fell short of completely dominating her will. However, this fact did not concern him at all. Instead, he resolved to exploit an AI, one more susceptible to manipulation, and ensnared her mind with his hypnosis. The AI began to respond. Under the mounting pressure of his overwhelming power, she pleaded for him to cease, her desperation only fueling Namaki's fury. In a fit of exasperation, she cried out for both of them to halt, insisting that her actions were meant for their own good. With a fierce determination, Shinji seized his sake and launched himself into an aggressive attack. The protagonist skillfully deflected the relentless barrage of strikes. He sensed the menacing aura of killing intent looming behind him. He was taken aback by the astonishing strength she demonstrated, unmistakably evident. Empowered by Shinji's abilities, the artificial intelligence seemed off, prompting Himawari to prepare herself for a direct confrontation with him. The explorer chuckled upon spotting her blocking his path, cautioning her that she was about to make a grave mistake. Namaki made a determined effort to restore AI's awareness, but she cried out, revealing his obliviousness to the emotions she had long harbored for him. Hachai remarked that her master appeared overwhelmingly busy, a statement that took him by surprise. However, she was already certain of her course of action. Without a moment's hesitation, she plunged into the fray to lend her support. Shinji's eyes widened in astonishment as he watched the woman from earlier spring forward, closing the distance between them. Hachai unleashed a powerful destruction spell known as Extra Present, striking the AI with devastating precision. After the impact, AI paused momentarily, caught in a fleeting stillness. Then she regained her composure, a look of bewilderment etched across her face. The protagonist inquired about her well-being. She gazed at him, her mind racing to comprehend the situation unfolding before her. With a sense of relief washing over him, he observed as she broke free from the hypnosis, rising to her feet to retrieve her sword once more. She insisted that she had something significant to share. As Hachai approached, laughter bubbled from him, clearly delighted with the outcome. Namaki realized that Hachai had shattered the enchantment magic that bound AI. Shinji, utterly bewildered, sought to comprehend the events that had just unfolded. However, his presence went unnoticed by the crowd, as they remained oblivious to him. Hachai's sole desire was to draw nearer to her master after offering her assistance. He expressed his frustration over her overly clingy behavior. However, he vowed he knew he would praise her later, a thought that filled her with joy. AI observed the unfolding scene and inquired about the identity of the enchanting girl. Before the words could escape his lips, she interjected, suggesting that if it were Himawari, perhaps she would reconsider her approach. In an instant, the power of AI surged dramatically. This unexpected turn caught even Namaki off guard. Nonetheless, she moved forward without a trace of hesitation. She expressed that her admiration for him had always been unwavering. While in school, he stood resolutely to shield her from a threat. The bully began to perceive him in an entirely new light. Since her first day at the dojo, she had harbored feelings for him, recalling how he had always been there to encourage her during moments of doubt and despair. The problem lay in the fact that he consistently regarded Himawari with a unique affection, and upon learning of his death, she was engulfed by an overwhelming sense of emptiness. Spotting him alongside Hachai, she erupted in frustration, demanding to know why fate had chosen her of all people for this predicament. Hachai narrowly avoided a potentially dangerous blow. Namaki leaped forward, positioning himself between her and the impending danger, determined to shield her from harm. AI vowed that she would never forgive him for his actions. Shinji erupted into laughter. He elaborated on how his power intensified negative emotions, transforming them into potent curses. This only intensified Namaki's fury. Shinji maintained his trademark arrogant smile, exuding an air of confidence. As the spell activated once more on AI, she pleaded desperately for them to cease. The protagonist understood that continuing to fight in such a manner would only inflict greater harm upon her. The protagonist faltered, momentarily paralyzed by uncertainty as he grappled with his next move. At that moment, Himawari charged towards Shinji with determined urgency. He shattered the accessory that served as his power's catalyst, and in a surge of shock, leapt backward, swiftly creating distance between himself and the group. Himawari steeled herself, preparing to launch another fierce assault. Shinji called out desperately for her to halt. He declared that it was sufficient. He elevated his voice, declaring his determination not to be outdone by anyone. He unleashed his captivating ability with heightened intensity, mesmerizing everyone around him. The letter had once again fallen under the influence of another force. As Shinji commanded her to surrender herself fully, a palpable tension filled the air. Namaki inquired, bewildered, how he could inflict such pain upon her. He made an earnest attempt to bridge the distance, yet Shinji's power thrived on a relentless tide of hate, envy, sadness, and shame that swelled within him. Shinji yearned to harness those emotions, seeking to internalize them as he aspired to grow stronger. Beneath the spell of hypnosis, it decided to relinquish her power. The energy surged into his body, invigorating every fiber of his being. Himawari stood frozen, her mind reeling in disbelief. Hachai grumbled under his breath, condemning himself as the worst kind of exploiter, a person who harnessed negative emotions to serve his own interests. Shinji's smile widened, a sense of satisfaction washing over him as he sensed the burgeoning power within. Himawari sprang into action, determined to intervene, but Shinji skillfully harnessed his gravity powers, effortlessly propelling her backward. Her movements abruptly froze mid-air, suspended in a moment of uncertainty. He boasted about his superior strength, even under immense pressure. Himawari remained resolute, fully committed to uncovering the reason behind her struggle. Shinji chuckled mockingly, blaming her for the situation and commanding her to kneel before him. The weight of the gravity intensified, pressing down with an oppressive force. Just in time, Namaki intervened, shielding her from potential harm. He commanded Shinji to cease his actions, leveling accusations at him for inflicting pain upon those he held dear. Shinji accused the main character of being a hypocrite, someone who merely pretended to embody the ideals of a hero. Gravity's relentless pressure bore down on Namaki, striving to compel him into submission and force him to his knees. However, even with the enhanced version at his disposal, Shinji came to the stark realization that his efforts were proving futile. The protagonist pondered the extent of the chaotic actions he had taken up to that point. Choosing silence, he withheld a response. Shinji adjusted the controls, elevating the power to an extreme level of high gravity. Even then, he found himself unable to inflict any harm. He stood there utterly astonished. Hachai observed with a sense of pride, urging him to surrender. Enraged, Shinji resolved to strike at AI in order to wound Namaki. Himawari's voice pierced the air as she urgently called for him to halt his actions. But time had already slipped away, and in an instant, everything changed. In a swift motion, the protagonist emerged from behind, delivering a precise slash that caught his opponent off guard. The blade in his hand became a symbol of betrayal, branding him as the villain in the unfolding tale. The protagonist's anguished scream pierced the silence, reverberating through the surroundings. On the floor, Shinji grimaced as he tightly grasped his injured hand. As one individual rushed forward to assist him, the protagonist, still dazed from the unfolding events, questioned how such a feat was possible, given that Namaki had achieved an impressive level 100. The protagonist advanced with determination, disclosing that he had reached level 6000 as he seized his opponent by the collar. With a decisive motion, emotion, he released his grip and let him fall to the ground, instructing Hachai to employ healing magic on the fallen figure. She consented, albeit with a hint of hesitation. He acquiesced to the request within the confines of his mind. As time passed, the injured explorers were carried away to receive medical treatment. This included the girls who had fallen under Shinji's influence. Ohai raised his voice, calling out to Himawari. Himawari sobbed, expressing deep remorse for her actions. He took her hand gently and spoke to her. There was no reason for her to cast blame upon herself. She advised Namaki to take some time to rest. He assured himself that everything would eventually be all right, even as she was being escorted to a secure location. Ohai wept inconsolably, pleading for forgiveness as the group observed helplessly while the injured were taken away. Namaki inquired about Himawari's well-being, her concern evident in her voice. Despite lowering her head, she quietly affirmed her agreement. She inquired about his well-being, her expression brightening with relief upon confirming that he was indeed safe. Her smile rekindled cherished childhood memories, reminding him of the times when she was his greatest source of inspiration, the individual he held in the highest regard. Hachai chuckled at the light-hearted atmosphere shared between them, until Ishibara hurriedly approached to engage in conversation. The protagonist expressed his gratitude to Namaki for bravely protecting everyone from Orochi's assault. This revelation caused a slight flush of embarrassment for him as Ishibara elaborated on the fact that Orochi possessed 6 distinct bodies. The defeat of 3 formidable opponents marked a significant milestone in humanity's struggle for survival. Furthermore, their successful capture of Shinji was a direct result of his timely intervention. Having reached the 4th floor, they resolved to return to base. Numerous explorers lauded Namaki for his effortless triumph over Orochi. The overwhelming admiration left the protagonist feeling uncertain about how to respond. Hachai acknowledged inwardly that she had deliberately removed the tails, and he reminded himself of the promised reward, vowing to make it up to her at a later time. Ishibara urged him to repeat his name. As he introduced himself, many in the crowd recalled that he was the legendary explorer who had achieved the remarkable feat of reaching level 100 first. Whispers circulated among the crowd, expressing skepticism over how someone once deemed weak could achieve such formidable power so swiftly. The protagonist's stunning victory over Orochi appeared almost too incredible to believe. Himawari silenced the murmurs around her, prompting Ishibara to acknowledge that some of the remarks had indeed crossed the line into rudeness. They expressed their gratitude to him and announced that a reward could be offered in return for his assistance. Namaki's eyes widened in astonishment upon hearing those words, until Hachai silently expressed a desire for something extraordinary. Understanding her implication about the barrels of alcohol, he broke into a smile. He recalled their vulnerability. Emerging from the depths of the dungeon, Namaki extended his limbs in a refreshing stretch. He gazed upward, a profound sense of longing washing over him as it felt like ages since he had last beheld the sky. Hachai commended him for his diligent efforts but noted with disappointment that the individual he admired had not arrived. Himawari lingered to assist with the cleanup of the space. Hachai inquired whether his feelings were affected by the situation. He reassured her that it did not disturb him, as she had always been someone who prioritized helping others. Determined to be a pillar of strength for her, he aspired to become someone capable of offering unwavering support. At that moment, Ayaka approached him to initiate a conversation. The following day, Namaki and Hachai made their way to the Explorers Association, side by side. In the bustling commercial district of the Dungeon City, they strolled through the vibrant streets. Hachai revealed her predicament, explaining that she found herself trapped in a mobile game and was struggling to clear the current level. The protagonist clarified that she required time to replenish her energy. He could either press on immediately or take a day to gather his strength before continuing. Her eyes widened in surprise as the concept of recharge was entirely foreign to her. He clarified that it required a monetary exchange. Baffled by the terminology, she inquired about the concept of paid gacha. He clarified that the payment was for acquiring random characters or items. Occasionally, the rewards received were exceptionally powerful. However, there were moments when the events unfolded in a completely ordinary manner, as if life had settled into a familiar rhythm. Everything hinged on fortune. Hachai seethed with frustration upon discovering the hefty costs required to enhance her strength within the game. The protagonist nodded in agreement, explaining that gacha games operated in such a manner. Feeling anxious about her lack of funds, she inquired about possible solutions. He proposed that she might consider finding employment or establishing an account. He aspired to become an explorer, just like the admired figure before him. clad in a voluminous hood that concealed his identity. Hachai effortlessly captured the gaze of those around her, commanding attention wherever she ventured. During the previous battle, many spectators had witnessed her true form revealed. The news was already beginning to circulate widely. Namaki understood that caution was imperative, for a single misstep could lead to unforeseen consequences. Whispers surrounding her identity had the potential to become perilous. There was. Moreover, the devastation wreaked upon the city was substantial, and they knew it was crucial to keep Hachai's true identity as the disaster-level Orochi a closely guarded secret. Without warning, she raised her voice at Namaki, chastising him for his failure to make the payment. He caught their attention and offered a sincere apology for having drifted into his thoughts. Hachai inquired whether he was feeling anxious once more, reminiscent of that fateful day they had faced together. With a bright laugh, she proclaimed her decision to embark on the path of an adventurer. It took him completely by surprise. Namaki attempted to convey the complexities of her current situation. The protagonist pondered whether the association would accept someone like her, but Hachai interjected with optimism, suggesting that his newfound influence might make it possible. However, he cautioned that the matter was not so straightforward. With a smile, she confessed that her primary motivation was to earn money for gacha games. As they continued on their way, Namaki mentioned her relentless gaming since the previous day, prompting Hachai to express his reluctance to disrupt her progress. Perched atop the building, a small group of onlookers observed the two of them intently. An enveloping silence accompanied them as they made their way to the headquarters of the association. Upon their arrival, Ayaka warmly welcomed. She greeted them with a warm smile, revealing that she had been anticipating their arrival. Immediately, the protagonist made an introduction. Hachai cherished their friendship deeply, valuing the bond they shared. He playfully taunted her, inquiring whether she preferred not to be addressed as a servant. He urged her to cease the playful banter, prompting Ayaka to chuckle at their light-hearted dispute. Namaki guided them through the entrance of the building, ushering them inside with a confident demeanor. He inquired about the reason for their summons. Ayaka promised to clarify all the details in the office. He led them toward the elevator, confidently navigating their way through the bustling crowd. She recounted that during the subjugation of Orochi, she observed the impressive synergy with which they battled. Upon reporting her findings to the association, the senior manager expressed a keen interest in arranging a meeting. This revelation left the protagonist taken aback, utterly astonished by the unexpected news. Ayaka revealed that both Himawari and Ishihara had also been summoned. She suggested that they could embark on their journey the following day. However, she preferred for them to accompany her immediately. Shortly thereafter, they arrived at headquarters. Namaki pondered the reason behind the manager's request for a conversation. Hachai reached out to him through a mental connection. He inquired whether he had sensed anything unusual, and as they ascended, an overwhelming aura appeared to draw nearer. Namaki nodded in agreement, a chill creeping over him as the unsettling sensation of being observed lingered in the air. Hachai urged him to remain vigilant as they reached the 48th floor. Ayaka guided them towards a door. He stepped forward first, seeking permission. The manager pivoted gracefully, offering a warm greeting to them. The receptionist, having fulfilled her duties, he stepped out of the room, closing the door behind him. This left the protagonist alone in the company of the man dressed in a sharp suit. The president of the Explorers Association extended a warm greeting to the protagonist, introducing himself with an air of authority. He quickly inquired about the identity of the girl seated beside him. As the elderly man maintained the facade of formalities, Haruka realizes that beneath the seemingly foolish expression lies a remarkable strength. Hachai remarks that, despite her uncertainty about his true nature, he sensed a hidden agenda lurking beneath the surface. Confusion clouded the protagonist's mind as he struggled to comprehend why they had been summoned so abruptly. He inquired if the elderly man desired anything. A sly smile crept across the president's face as he expressed his gratitude to him for the assistance in subjugating Orochi just days prior. After apprehending the criminals, he spun around with excitement, revealing that Kyogoku had spoken to him. He recounted the thrilling details of their astonishing battle, and he marveled at the kid's astonishing prowess, having dispatched 3 disaster-class forms with a single strike. Suddenly, the man in the suit adopted a more somber demeanor. He inquired whether Haruka had forged a pact with the villain. Swiftly, the young man caught sight of Aura, a wave of fear washing over him. He attempts to dissect the man's character. However, his partner gently reminded him of his lack of detection skills. The woman revealed that the old man was wielding a mythical class spell, rendering her unable to decipher his status. upon hearing this. The protagonist inquired whether that was the same magic she had wielded previously. The girl replied affirmatively, confirming his thoughts. She admits her confusion, expressing that she cannot identify what it truly is. However, it was clear that the man possessed an abundance of information. Recognizing that the old man was far from an ordinary individual, he urges his teammate to position themselves behind him. Following that moment, the man in the suit unleashed a powerful skill. He proposed that they explore the limits of their abilities. In the hallway, two co-workers strolled past, casually inquiring whether anyone was already inside the room. The secretary remarked that they were likely engaged in conversation with her boss. Without warning, the door crashed down upon her head. Without hesitation, Hamri unsheathed her sword. The protagonist found himself intrigued by the unfolding events around him. A profound surge of energy coursed through her, igniting an intense sensation within. He cautions his partner against getting too close. Following that moment, the president unleashed his skill towards Haruka with precision. The boy attempted to harness his divine observation, yet he found himself unable to refuse. The young man pivoted towards Heichai and declared his intention to leave Hayagaku and Ishihara behind for her sake. With determination, the man sprinted towards Hamri, convinced that victory was now within his grasp. The protagonist endeavors to counter the oncoming assault from his adversary. However, he only succeeds in cleaving it apart. Realizing there was no escape from the impending danger, the boy enveloped his partner in a protective embrace. However, Heichai positioned himself in front, blocking the way. Enduring the onslaught, she finally unveiled her true appearance. Despite the circumstances, the girl continued to inquire. He regarded the young man with a smile, concerned for his well-being. In a state of panic, Haruka reassured her that he was fine, yet his concern for her injuries loomed heavily in his thoughts. The woman divulged that she had momentarily lowered her defenses. Hamri expressed her gratitude for the assistance she had received. He emphasizes the urgent need to address those wounds without delay. Yet she appeared completely unfazed by the situation. Immediately following that moment, Heichai resolves to activate a skill to treat her wounds. The unexpected revelation left the girl in a state of astonishment. In a matter of seconds, she returned to her usual self. The protagonist inquired about his teammates' well-being, to which the woman confidently affirmed that she was indeed fine. Following that moment, she declared that they would need to approach their situation with utmost seriousness from that point forward. If they failed to act swiftly, their fate would inevitably lead to death. The old man, in response, finds himself genuinely impressed. The two of them proved to be far more capable than the report had indicated. This revelation ignited a fervent thrill within him, intensifying his eagerness to engage in battle against them. The young one stood prepared, eager for the challenge ahead. However, the secretary burst into the room, her voice rising in a frenetic screech that echoed like a wild frenzy. He urged them to cease their actions. The group collectively agreed to ease the tension. He promptly begins to tidy up the disorder. The president expressed his regret for having exceeded the limits of decorum. The secretary informed him that she had already updated him on Namiki's status, asserting that if he exerted his utmost effort, he would ultimately bring destruction and chaos to the surrounding area. In response, she urged him to reflect on the consequences of his actions. The man nodded, feigning comprehension despite his utter confusion. Haruka approached, inquiring about the unfolding situation. Following that, the woman clarified that his presence was requested solely for the purpose of examination. He realized that the two of them might end up as adversaries. The girl inquired whether Heichai was the harbinger of disaster. The unexpected departure left everyone in astonished disbelief. Curiosity sparked within the girl as she pondered how they possessed such knowledge. In response, the president proceeded to reveal the information to her. The woman sensed an unfamiliar presence within him and, upon recognition, understood exactly who it was. Heichai reveals that the creature dwells in the shadowy depths of the dungeon, or at least that's where it is believed to reside. Curious, the protagonist inquires whether his teammate is familiar with it. The girl unveils the truth of their shared past, and immediately following her revelation, she claimed to have come to a conclusion. Lindworm deliberately chose to maintain a distance from humans, firmly refusing any possibility of forming a contract with them. Haruka comes to a profound realization of the unique bond they share and contemplates the possibility of other dragons existing in the world. Before the conversation could advance any further, Heichai's curiosity piqued as he contemplated the identity of the secretary standing beside him. This left her feeling decidedly uncomfortable. The suited man elucidated that she possessed a dual nature, being both half human and half monster. She had forged a contract with his mother. Hamori mentioned that she had heard tales of individuals like them. However, this marked the first occasion she had encountered one in person. The girl revealed that others remained oblivious to her hidden side. She chose to keep it a secret, yet her emotions would betray her in moments of vulnerability. Certain truths inevitably come to light. She exerts every ounce of effort to maintain her composure, knowing that losing control would make life in the dungeon city unbearable. Hamori inquired whether she experiences any form of prejudice. The secretary noted that hybrids often suffer from a poor public image. However, Isekai uncovered her secret while she remained in her human form. The woman replied, revealing that she had spent her entire life within the confines of a dungeon. Moreover, she failed to conceal it effectively. The protagonist lifted his gaze. He raised his hand, confessing that he had harbored suspicions as well. Upon hearing that, Haruka reprimanded his teammate, insisting he should have addressed the issue sooner. Hamori inquired whether Kyogoku had indeed spoken the truth earlier regarding Haikai's classification as a disaster class Orkai, and with a heartfelt affirmation, she replied in the affirmative. Ishihara stood in awe, unable to comprehend how a massive dragon could transform into such a breathtaking sight. Following the encounter, the girl became intrigued by the events that had just unfolded. The protagonist implored for forgiveness, promising that he would elucidate everything at a later time. For the moment, he urges her to find her composure. With a grin, the president remarked that matters were becoming increasingly intriguing. He proposes relocating the conversation to a different setting. In the meeting room, the secretary announced that the investigation results revealed key findings. Haruka and Haikai share no animosity toward one another. She expressed her gratitude to both of them for their cooperation. However, the old man observes that they still appear to be on high alert. He realizes just how evident that truth is. Just moments earlier, the president had launched an unexpected attack on him. Moreover, he was bound by a contract as a Lindworm. The man reassured the boy, encouraging him to ease his tension. Despite being a disaster-class Orkai, Haikai fiercely defended the humans during the battle. He reassured that this minor disagreement wouldn't turn them into enemies. The boss asserted that, under those circumstances, both of them were certain they could place their trust in him. Immediately following that, his subordinate expressed gratitude for the collective efforts of the Orochi subjugation squad. With a warm smile, the woman urged them to keep everything that had transpired under wraps, assuring them that a reward awaited their discretion. Himari makes an effort to express her thoughts. However, the man bowed deeply, expressing his heartfelt gratitude for all that had been given to him. He then declared to Haruka that, from that moment forward, he had officially ascended to the status of a rank A explorer. The young man confessed his unease, revealing that he held only a D rank. The old man recalled the protagonist's demonstration of skill and determination in their previous battle, instilling in him a firm belief that the young warrior was indeed qualified. Himari urged him to take some time to ponder the decision further. She had been observing him engage in battle throughout this entire period. With that, a consensus emerged between both parties. The boss then resolved that in that scenario, the association would be able to formally welcome Haikai as a member. Upon hearing those words, the girl embraced the protagonist, her face alight with joy at the prospect of their continued companionship. Himari observed them with a menacing gaze, urging her partner to clarify the nature of their relationship in intricate detail. Meanwhile, in the bustling city, the residents had already become aware of the astonishing news spread like wildfire, revealing that a previously unremarkable rank D individual had inexplicably ascended to the formidable rank A. However, they dismissed it as mere fake news. Nearby, a phone buzzed with notifications, revealing an array of articles discussing the highly anticipated promotion. A man resembling Michael Jackson approached, intrigued by what she was observing and eager to catch a glimpse for himself. A petite blonde girl named Ichigo playfully declared that he could gaze as much as he wished while she splashed about in the bath. Himari reminisced about the days spent in her village. The peace of the realm was shattered as monsters launched an invasion. The girl gracefully moved forward. The protagonist stepped forward, positioning himself defiantly in front of Haruka to shield him from harm. He responds with a comforting smile, assuring her that he is just fine. He dismissed it as merely a minor scratch. The woman was soon struck by curiosity regarding the presence of those peculiar items in the village. With her defenses low, lowered. A creature lunged at her with ferocious intent. Observing the threat, the protagonist swiftly seized his sword, determination igniting within him as he prepared to pursue the monster. However, Himari boldly positioned herself in front. He felt the sharp impact as a blow struck his shoulder. Witnessing the scene unfold before him, Haruka's emotions overcame him, and tears began to stream down his face. He vowed to become stronger, determined that one day he would be able to protect her. Returning to the present moment, Hachai browsed through the racks of clothing in the shop, eagerly trying on various outfits. He turned to his co-worker, seeking his opinion on the matter. The boy remarked that it suited her quite well. Himari, for her part, generously showered compliments without reservation. He remarks that it appears flawless, and immediately after, their curiosity peaks regarding how it came to be. The woman skillfully concealed her tale and revealed that she had received some valuable advice from Kyogoku, Haruka. Observers noted that the duo had been spending an inordinate amount of time in each other's company. The woman resolutely chose to purchase the outfit. However, her dissatisfaction lingered as she promptly urged them to head to another store. Himari requested a brief moment of patience, explaining that she needed to settle her payment first. However, Hachai candidly confessed that she was utterly out of money. Subsequently, she inquired whether the protagonist would be able to cover the expenses this time, to which he readily agreed. However, before he could take any action, his co-worker generously volunteered to cover the bill. Haruka dismisses the notion, asserting that it isn't necessary, while the girl reassures her, indicating that everything is perfectly fine. Having aided her recently, Hachai felt that this gesture would balance the scales between them. The woman radiated with excitement, her enthusiasm palpable in the air around her. He described her as a genuinely good person. She inquired whether she could simply refer to her as Himari from that moment forward. She assured him that it was perfectly acceptable. Eventually, they made their way to a nearby cafe. The protagonist expressed heartfelt gratitude for the assistance she had provided earlier. The girl bursts into laughter, playfully remarking that it was fortunate she had taken the action. Hachai, feeling a wave of boredom wash over him, glanced around and questioned whether it was time to return home. The man nodded in agreement, prompting the woman to begin humming softly. Determined to seek revenge, Haruka was taken aback by the revelation that she intended to continue playing even after they returned home. Upon hearing those words, Himari exhibited a noticeable sense of unease. He pondered whether they cohabited, to which the man responded affirmatively. The protagonist revealed that the girl lacked the funds to seek alternative accommodations, prompting Hachai to assert that it was only natural for her to remain by her master's side. Intrigued, Himari pondered the reason behind the woman's peculiar way of addressing her partner. She forcefully pinned the boy against the wall, demanding to know if he had an interest in such things. An escalating wave of anxiety washed over him. In a surprising turn of events, the girl proposed that she and Hachai cohabitate. The woman insisted that she could not depart from her master's side. However, Himari invites him to join as well. Moments later, the protagonist's phone erupted with a relentless vibration. He rose from the table, curiosity propelling him to investigate the source of the disturbance. Kyogoku urgently conveyed the message, indicating that there was a pressing matter at hand. The secretary informed him that a significant horde of goblins had appeared on the third floor, prompting his request for assistance from the Explorers Association. Among the inhabitants of the dungeon lurked the formidable Goblin Champion, a creature of great renown. As a result, numerous individuals suffered injuries, prompting the woman to inquire about the possibility of stopping by that location. Subsequently, the group agrees to the offer presented before them. He made his request and proceeded to the location. Upon entering, Hachai couldn't shake the curiosity about whether her master was feeling fatigued. Having been pursued for an extended period, they continued to sprint forward. However, the man informed him that there was still over a kilometer to go. This revelation dampens the spirits of his teammate. She inquired about the reason for their decision to travel on foot. The protagonist recalls the woman. He could only sprint swiftly when near water. However, there was an evident absence of it in that place. Hachai then proposed that they utilize a vehicle. However, Himari explained that they lacked the authority to utilize the association's vehicles, and that a lengthy procedure was involved. The girl recounted the moment they had gone. In their quest to eliminate Orochi, Hachi, they submitted a request, yet received no response. The emergencies had thrown the vehicle arrangements into disarray, making it impossible for them to maintain control. Hachi felt disheartened by the insistence of humans on adhering to rules, prompting the protagonist to clarify that such regulations were essential for maintaining order. After that, Haruka took note of the meticulous upkeep of the surroundings. He becomes intrigued by the origin of those resources. Without warning, a sharp pain surged through his head. His partner inquired about his well-being, to which he responded affirmatively, expressing gratitude for her concern. Suddenly, they became aware of a shimmering light beckoning from the end of the tunnel. Upon their arrival, they remained perplexed, unable to grasp the unfolding events. Before them stood a captivating scene. A group of goblins lay sprawled on the ground, defeated and incapacitated. The boy observed that it seemed someone had arrived there ahead of them. Subsequently, they came to the startling realization that the individual resembling Michael Jackson was. He stood there, a warm smile gracing his face as he gazed at them. He questioned whether he had managed to handle the creatures entirely on his own. However, the man revealed that he was involved with someone else. Upon hearing those words, the three of them immediately shifted into a state of heightened alertness. Haruka asserted that he could see no one else around. However, the man asserts once more that he is mistaken because his partner stood steadfastly by his side. Suddenly, the young man found himself caught off guard. The young man caught sight of the girl as she made her exit. He found himself bewildered, unable to comprehend how she had managed to draw so near without him realizing. In response, the enigmatic figure disclosed that she had been present from the very beginning. The girl began to speak, acknowledging the protagonist's remarkable strength. Suddenly, the girl sprang forward, aiming directly for Haruka. However, he skillfully evades and he finds himself astounded by the remarkable speed of his opponent. The girl affirmed that his strength was indeed genuine. Inspired by this revelation, she resolved to embrace honesty as well. The battle raged on with relentless intensity. Mia clarified that her teammate had been evaluating Hamori's abilities. On the other hand, each passing moment echoed a sentiment that it still fell short of sufficiency. She continued her relentless barrage of attacks while the protagonist grew increasingly frantic in his attempts to capture the girl's attention. Hamori pondered the astonishing strength possessed by that young boy. Following this revelation, the girl skillfully engaged a vibration technique directed at the woman. She comes to the realization that if she maintains this pace, she would ultimately find herself overwhelmed. Ichigo urged the woman to pour her heart and soul into the endeavor. She warned her not to underestimate her abilities. Following that, Hamori tenses every muscle in her body, channeling her strength and determination. The girl quickly grasps that it is a body enhancement. In the ensuing moment, the two of them collide, resulting in both being forcefully propelled backward. This encounter fostered mutual respect between the two, yet the young boy declared that the fight was far from finished. Hamori stands resolute, refusing to yield. He lunges fiercely at his opponent as well. However, just before they clash once more, Mario executed a skill that swiftly exchanged their positions. Avoiding confrontation, she advised her partner against engaging in the fight. To engage in superfluous activities, the young man expressed his regret for having obstructed the path. However, what truly mattered was their proximity. Haruka affirmed the man's insight, recognizing that the real threat was advancing towards them. Just then, a frantic figure burst onto the scene, desperately fleeing from a monstrous creature that relentlessly pursued him, though he struggled to gain any distance. Shortly thereafter, a multitude of formidable monsters emerged, resembling the initial creature. Behind them loomed an ominous presence. An even larger figure took the lead, guiding them onward. Hamori inquired if her partner was certain. With a resolute nod, the boy affirmed his agreement. He reported that there were 30 creatures alongside a being of higher level. They would arrive in just 1 minute. Mario gazed at the protagonist with admiration, clearly impressed by his remarkable abilities. Each player became aware that his teammate was fixated on something with intent curiosity. He turned to the others, expressing his disdain with a sharp comment about how disgusting it was. The man declared the gravity of the situation, prompting both he and his companion to join forces. Moments later, the monsters emerged, their presence sending a ripple of tension through the air. He sprinted forward, his heart pounding with each determined stride. Following the footsteps of previous explorers, spotting the largest creature among them, Haruka deduces that it must be the leader of the pack. Subsequently, the system presents the optimal strategy to navigate the unfolding situation. The protagonist came to the profound realization that they could embark on this journey together. The boy instructed Hamori to proceed alongside the child. He commanded Haikai to provide cover. Determined to protect the innocent, he resolved to confront the formidable threat head-on. However, before proceeding with any further developments, the young man stepped forward, introducing himself to the pair and inquiring if Mia would be able to assist the girls. Without hesitation, he readily accepted the proposal. The aspiring king of pop expressed his admiration for the protagonist's impressive ability to arrive. He swiftly devised a plan that capitalized on the unique abilities of each team member. A creature lunged toward Hamori with ferocious intent, but she skillfully defends herself while launching a powerful counterattack. The woman suddenly comprehends that those objects were shifting in a peculiar manner. In a more refined manner, Ichigo urged her to remain vigilant, much like the seasoned explorers. More monsters lurked behind her, ominously drawing closer. Hamori effortlessly claims she dispatched them all effortlessly with her sword, even. The little girl observed that the creatures exhibited unusual behavior. Immediately following that moment, she inquires. Mia searched for something. In an astonishing moment, the girl's axe expanded dramatically in size. The monstrous figures charged forward with startling speed. With a single devastating swing of her weapon, she eradicates them all. Following that moment, the undead leader advanced. In a frenzy, he charged toward the adventurer with wild intensity. Haruka pondered whether that ability was a rare skill. He cautioned Haikai about the troubling nature of the monster. The woman steadfastly aided her master, enabling him to forge ahead. Seizing the opportunity created by that distraction, the protagonist succeeds in achieving his goal. He landed several powerful blows on the monstrous creature. He concluded it with a decisive flourish. Together, the duo successfully elevated both Haruka and his partner to new heights. As the victorious moments unfolded, he took the time to revel in the triumph. Meanwhile, Hamori directed her gaze towards her teammate, enveloped in a profound silence. He inquired whether anything was amiss. With a smile gracing her lips, she assured him that it was nothing. She begins to reflect on the profound changes that the man has undergone. The adventurers, facing peril, bowed in gratitude to their saviors for the assistance they had received earlier. However, the boy asserts that there is no need for them to treat him in such a manner. Hamori beamed with a bright smile. She expressed her immense pride in the protagonist's accomplishments. It left him feeling uncomfortable and out of place. The boy recalled the jeers of those who once ridiculed him for being a feeble level 100 before his untimely demise. However, everything had changed. He had grown a bit stronger and forged trustworthy friendships. Haruka remained unaware of the reason behind his divine resilience, yet he harbored hopes that one day he would understand it fully. The protagonist, at the age of 21 and possessing A-rank skills, recognized that to gain a thorough understanding, they would need to venture even deeper into the dungeon. His family members had vanished without a trace, leaving him in a state of deep concern. Known for his affectionate nature, he approached life with immense patience and care. Among his cherished pastimes were the delicate art of sewing and Haruka gazed in admiration at the array of swords surrounding him, a reflection of his upbringing steeped in martial tradition. Having grown up in an orphanage nestled within the depths of the dungeon city, he had known no other home. Thus, it was through this series of events that he crossed paths with Hamori Takebana. Subsequently, he began frequenting the dojo that his father operated in the impoverished district. At 24 years old, the woman stood out as an A-rank explorer hailing from the Flow district. She was brought up in a household led by a single parent. The girls delight in engaging in tea ceremonies and practicing the elegant art of calligraphy. The protagonist faced the profound loss of her mother, who succumbed to an illness during her elementary school years. Thus, she was brought up under the care of her father. Following that moment, she committed herself wholeheartedly to mastering martial arts at the dojo. He diligently honed his abilities with the sword, spear, and bow, mastering each weapon with unwavering dedication. During her high school years, she embarked on her journey as an explorer, marking the beginning of her adventurous pursuits. She garnered media attention as a prodigious young talent, and the overwhelming public response only amplified her rising popularity during that period. 7 years prior, an unofficial fan club was clandestinely established. An unexpected incident unfolded between the two of them, where a mysterious creature launched a sudden attack. Haruka immersed himself in rigorous training at the dojo. In his quest to assist him, Hamori found herself injured along the way. As the authorities approached, the creature swiftly retreated into the shadows. The enigmatic goals of that episode remain shrouded in mystery to this day. According to Mia, it served as the pivotal moment that transformed the dynamic between the two teenagers. Without warning, Kyogoku urged him to take a moment and settle his agitation. He felt a surge of curiosity, wondering if something was amiss. The woman revealed that they had requested a combat report from Haruka, yet he was veering off in an entirely unexpected direction. The serious-faced man in the suit inquired if they could proceed with the report. Mia, acknowledging his enthusiasm, offers an apology for becoming slightly overzealous. He shifts the focus back to the explanation. The man recalled the recent battle with Haruka, noting the intensity of their confrontation. An intriguing aspect emerged as the namesake of his special ability, along with its intricate details, remained shrouded in mystery. He questioned the validity of the claim, wondering aloud if the child had truly formed a contract with the formidable disaster class Orochi. He remarked that the protagonist was referred to as a mystery because he stood as a level 100 newcomer, bewildered yet brimming with potential. Mia speculated that the rapid leveling up must be a glitch in the system. The old man confessed his own curiosity, recalling the moment he confronted him in his room and unleashed the power of his mythic class magic. The boy exclaimed with fervor, proclaiming a divine prediction. After that moment, he found himself astonished by the swiftness and accuracy of his own movements. Mia recalls a recent occasion when the protagonist's leadership came into focus. The protagonist deemed it excellent, despite having already anticipated the outcome. He was astonished by how quickly they had honed their abilities. The president then stated that Haruka exhibited the potential to excel. A sense of peril loomed, for he undoubtedly harbored a hidden truth. Nonetheless, he confesses that he is, in fact, a person of genuine intrigue. Kyogoku provocatively suggested that leaking his private evaluations might add an intriguing twist to the situation. The girl proposed that the investigation should carry on without interruption. The old man commanded Mia to persist in carrying out his mission. He then departed, making a decisive choice. Before he stepped outside, the receptionist requested that he inform her when a new report became available. The man reflected on his deep reluctance to consider the old man as an enemy. Outside, he races toward each passing ago, eager to seize fleeting moments. The girl felt a spark of curiosity ignite within her regarding the conversation he had shared with the president. However, the man dismissively claimed that it was of no significance. Following that exchange, Mia announces that the girl is permitted to form a team alongside Haru. Upon hearing the news, her face lit up with joy. The man pondered whether Haruka would take the bait on this enticing offer. After a moment of reflection, Hamori found herself standing resolutely. Somewhere nearby, she pondered the whereabouts of her teammates. Suddenly, the two bumbling figures dashed onto the scene, panting and disheveled. Heichai inquired about the reason behind their hurried escape once more. The protagonist revealed that their tardiness stemmed from the girl's prolonged struggle to wake up. The woman confessed that sleep eluded her until dawn's first light. Nevertheless, the boy insisted that he had informed them about their early departure. Heichai remarked that the location lacked any valuable items. Haruka expressed his frustration, declaring that he was fed up with her excuses. Moments later, the girl expressed her apologies to Hamori for her tardiness. However, the woman reassures him that everything is fine. He enveloped the girl in a warm embrace, expressing his heartfelt gratitude for her kindness. She asserts that she is markedly distinct from a particular master. Moments later, Mia arrived accompanied by her friend, offering an apology for their tardiness. He explains that Ichigo remains in a constant state of unconsciousness due to her low blood pressure. This left her feeling vulnerable and weakened in the early hours of the day. With determination fueling their resolve, the group ventured into the dungeon, intent on vanquishing the formidable boss and his minions. In the depths of his thoughts, Haruka inquired of Mia about the origin of her request, noting its absence from the Explorers Guild bulletin. The board boasted an impressive feature, presenting a remarkably robust design. The reward amounted to a staggering 5 million. Heichai calculated that dividing the total would yield approximately 1 million for each person. This ignited her enthusiasm to invest every bit of it into her game. Immediately following that, Mia urged the others to place their trust in him, despite his inability to disclose any details about the client. Ichigo begins to relentlessly tease him, pushing his buttons with every word. He urged her to temporarily set it aside. Subsequently, he recalled the girl's enthusiastic reaction at the prospect of reuniting the team. The blonde promptly clarified that the situation was not as it seemed. However, another individual could be perceiving the situation differently. Despite grasping the underlying message, the protagonist chooses to redirect his attention toward the task at hand. Haruka reflects on the profound transformation his life underwent following the receipt of a divine prediction. However, there remained a vast expanse of knowledge about the skill that eluded him. On the bright side, he stood to gain an extraordinary amount of experience points. However, if an explorer were to discover it, they would undoubtedly seek to possess it. Suddenly, the boy was overcome by the familiar throbbing pain in his head. The events were repeating themselves once more. Hirony sensed a peculiar change in his demeanor, prompting a wave of concern to wash over him. The protagonist offered her a reassuring smile, affirming that he was fine. Moments later, a flicker of realization crossed his mind as he expressed the growing sensation that something significant was on the verge of resurfacing in his memory. The girl, in response, remained utterly bewildered by the situation. However, her teammates struggled to articulate the explanation effectively. Suddenly, he received alarming news that disaster-class monsters were rapidly closing in. The protagonist swiftly activated his divine prediction skill to formulate effective battle strategies. As the boy remained silent, curiosity welled up within Mia, prompting her to wonder what was unfolding beneath his quiet demeanor. Haruka becomes acutely aware of an unseen observer and feels a wave of irritation wash over him. The young man reflects on his previous belief that he was merely an enigmatic figure, yet now he finds himself growing suspicious of another. Heichai concedes that deciphering the man's thoughts proves to be quite challenging. The protagonist revealed that a divine prediction had divided them into two factions, and for that reason, he sought her assistance. Following her caution, the woman alerted him to the presence of several goblin knights lurking among their adversaries. The protagonist recognized that being encircled by such a group could lead to significant complications. To prevent further complications, it was wiser for them to part ways. Following that, Heichai instructed Himuri to accompany Mia down the right passage and await further instructions. She veered left alongside Haruka and Ichigo, strategizing to orchestrate an ambush against Himuri. The protagonist inquired about her teammate's unusual tone, prompting the woman to promise a thorough explanation at a later time. Though dissatisfaction flickered within her, the girl resigned herself to accept the response. Before departing, she urges the protagonist to take care. He assured her that their paths would cross once more when everything had concluded. The group divided and strategically assumed their respective positions. Mia comes to the unsettling realization that they had intentionally sent him away. Following this revelation, Himuri inquired about the man's proficiency in hand-to-hand combat, to which he modestly responded that he only possessed a basic understanding of the skills. The woman elaborates on the enemy's specialization. The team meticulously strategized their collective tactics. She devises a plan while he stands ready to watch their backs. Upon hearing those words, Mia remarked that the girl exuded a distinctly serious demeanor. He represented the complete antithesis of the protagonist. He inquired whether the two of them were in a romantic relationship. A flush of embarrassment washed over Himuri at the remark. Following that moment, the girl remarked that the topic was utterly inappropriate. The man remarked that he was merely attempting to break the ice. Suddenly, a goblin mounted on a wolf lunged at Himuri, poised to strike. Yet she skillfully fends off the attack. Mia inquired eagerly whether they could finally commence the battle. Following that moment, the girl surged forward with determination. Yet, one of the creatures unleashed its swirling mist. She recognized that it posed a significant danger as it entirely obstructed her view. The goblin stealthily approached from behind, snatching her sword with cunning precision. Realizing she was being cornered, Himuri finds himself pondering the whereabouts of Mia, who has seemingly vanished without a trace. Moments later, the woman was forcefully sent sprawling to the ground. He found himself overpowered and restrained by the monstrous creatures. Upon catching sight of their unpleasant visages, the girl swiftly grasps the situation. Realizing their intentions, she began to scream for them to halt their actions. Yet she struggles to muster any strength within her body, but the effort proves futile. Himuri dismisses the creatures as worthless, but just as she prepares to unleash further insults, one of them sank its teeth into her shoulder. As she cries out in agony, the goblin gazes at her with a twisted sense of delight. She contemplated the species' perception of women and children, viewing them merely as objects of desire. They likely aimed to shatter her resolve, yet creatures of that nature lacked the power to sap her strength. She believed the worsening wound on her shoulder was a consequence of the mist encountered earlier. She began to feel a rising desperation, fervently searching for an escape. Himuri berated himself for allowing his guard to falter, recognizing the weakness it represented. Frustration welled up within her at the mere thought of Haruka witnessing her in such a vulnerable state. Meanwhile, one of the goblins seized her dagger, intent on completing its grim task. However, before he could take any action, he fell under hypnosis and relinquished the weapon. Despite being unaware of the unfolding situation, he pressed on. Determined to seize the opportunity, the woman resolves not to let this chance slip away. The girl deftly extricated herself from her constraints. She understood that ceasing her struggle would inevitably trap her in this dire situation. A goblin lunged at him from behind, catching the protagonist off guard. However, she swiftly pivots and strikes him with an arrow. Other monsters began to close in around her, encircling their prey. However, Himuri skillfully evades the attack and swiftly dispatches the wolf. The intensity of exhaustion from the wound on her shoulder surged, compelling the girl to realize that she needed to address it swiftly. Immediately following that moment, she spots her sword lying on the ground and swiftly dashes to retrieve it. However, as a consequence of her actions, she finds herself struck by a bullet in the back. Despite this, the woman rises to her feet once more. He spent additional moments focusing his energy, unleashing a powerful ability on her sword. The video concludes at this point. If he enjoyed it, he was encouraged to leave a like and look forward to the next encounter. The final wave, he bid farewell. He bid farewell, his voice laced with finality.